Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Carolyn Bryan, as Kathy mentioned. Thank you all for being here. We are your civil servants up here, and it's so great to see so many of you and the many opportunities we have to serve you. So please, please, please take advantage of it, and we'll get into more of that with our technical assistance piece. So yesterday we spoke about funding opportunities, and today we're going to speak about opportunities for partnership and technical assistance. We won't go through formal introductions similar to yesterday, but when each presenter begins, they'll provide their name, title, and agency so you can get to know them. We have less than an hour. I was born and raised in New Jersey, so I'm going to speak very fast, but I'll be keeping track of our federal partners as well, and we'll save all questions till the end. So we're just going to kind of move through. So just very quickly before we begin, I'm going to make a plug for federal technical assistance because it has a lot of those less overhead. So there's fewer strings attached. There's usually not even a contract that goes with it. It is a great way for communities to assess where are they currently and where they can possibly think through next steps on their way to federal funding. The other piece of technical assistance and partnership is it's faster. We can work with you tomorrow rather than waiting for that federal funding to come through. And it really comes in different shapes and sizes. So it could be as simple as a meeting with a federal office, or it can be more formal assistance with, we have contracted people that we work with, and then we can give them right to you. So those are my plugs. And it can really help precede a grant. It shows that you're working with us in a positive way, and lays the groundwork. If you are already receiving technical assistance from a federal agency, it's showing that you are committed to improving your community, and therefore are an even better candidate to receive federal funding. Yeah, if the earlier you get on it, the better it is for your grant purposes. So although we won't be talking about billions of dollars today, we will be talking about work that we can do tomorrow with you or even today. So I hope you take advantage of that. All right, I'm done talking. I'm going to pass it over. Our first focus will be on energy, and we'll start with Katrina Paelli from the Department of Energy.
Thank you so much. And just a quick thanks and acknowledgement both to Kathy, who stepped out. Oh, there you go. Thank you. And also to Carolyn for all her help. So I'm Katrina Paelli with the Department of Energy in the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, or OSED. There are so many TA opportunities across the department. I'm just going to highlight a few. But before I do that, I want to highlight a grant opportunity that links up to TA. We have in my office $50 million of grant with no cost share requirement open now. It's specifically for energy projects in communities with 10,000 people or less. And it's a simplified application process, not quite one page, but 20 short answer questions. And the deadline is July 13th. The link to TA is that you can get technical assistance if you make it past that pre-application stage. So I'm going to put that on your radar. It's the first thing on the bullet here. And part of that program is also technical assistance that we've partnered with EPA on, and Kelly's going to tell you about the Tic Tacs, because we've provided funding to help really bolster that support for that rural and remote program. Also, our Clean Energy on Mine Land program, technical assistance offered through the Tic Tacs as well. And then similarly, we have 17 national labs across the department, and you can receive technical assistance from those national labs as well, both for the Mine Land program and also the rural and remote program. So the Tic Tacs I mentioned here, but you're going to hear a lot more. There's a new request for applications coming out soon for one specifically targeted at Region 8, which includes Wyoming. So more on that soon. But the URL at the bottom, energy.gov/OCED, is where you can find all the information about the grant that I just mentioned. Next slide. Here's a smattering of a couple of relevant TA across the department. So the first is a state and local solution center. This is a place where you can actually go and request no cost TA through our national labs. It's a simple web form, and it's a mix of both telephone consultations. They can do a small report for you. There's a limit on the number of hours, but it's all no cost. And so that link up there is active for that. Our Office of Indian Energy also has a whole raft of technical assistance available, specifically looking at projects to benefit not just tribal governments, but tribal businesses, projects on Indian country. And this is also no cost and administered through the National Renewable Energy Lab in Colorado. We do have something called Clean Energy to Communities, which is a more in-depth multi-year technical assistance partnership. And this is something that the application window currently is closed, but there'll be another one opening soon. So if that type of deeper TA is of interest to you at no cost, grab that URL. We'll have another window opening soon. And then finally is our Communities Leap program. That one is also a multi-year program. Another window is coming soon for that. And it includes things like helping communities think through carbon capture and sequestration, energy efficiency, transportation, microgrids and energy storage. And it's a similar situation where you apply, then there's a several year process where you work closely with us and our national labs, and you come out the other side with a plan, which, as Carolyn said, then hooks you up with a real nice pathway into applying for federal funding. So I'll stop there and just say, feel free to grab myself or Kate Gordon. We'll be here during speed dating and we'll be happy to tell you more about it. So next slide, 5 minutes or less. I'll turn it over to Miles from USDA. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Glenn Pauly again from USDA. I'm going to turn this over to Miles if there's any questions. We do have a Renewable Energy for America energy audit and renewable energy program. The entities that are available that eligible for this are state and local governments, federally recognized tribes, colleges and universities, so that would include Sheridan College, and electric co-ops. And this is a grant for up to $100,000. It can provide money for energy audits, for renewable energy technical assistance and renewable energy site assessment. And one of the things that's very interesting about this grant that's not common in a lot of grants, it will pay for salaries. So if you're a nonprofit or a university and you want to, or a town, provide this type of technical assistance, that will be available to you. Did I miss anything, Miles?
All right, hello again, everybody. Kelly Watkins, I'm the Chief of Staff for EPA Region 8. Next slide, please. So I talked about this yesterday. I won't go into it again, but there's a number of different technical assistance resources that are available for a lot of these different programs, from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. Next slide, please. The one that I want to focus on today is the EJ Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers, the EJ TICTACs, as we call them, because we can't resist having a fun acronym in the federal government. This is a really exciting program. It's a brand new network of technical assistance centers that are going to be available to a whole range of eligible entities across the country, but also across our region here in Region 8. And I'll talk about who can access these resources in just a minute, but essentially what this program will do is provide free technical assistance, training, and capacity building support to communities and stakeholders. And it's a partnership between EPA and DOE that's really exciting. That's part of our broader interagency Thriving Communities network that we're really trying to coordinate a lot of these resources. Next. So essentially what these TICTACs are going to do is they're going to provide training and other technical assistance to help build capacity for nonprofits, community members, and local governments, et cetera, across the country. And it's really intended to help bring a lot of these federal resources to bear in ways that communities may not have been able to access previously. And so it's going to provide services like helping navigate federal grant application systems, which, as many of you know, can be very complicated. Identifying funding sources to apply for, whether that's federal, state, local, philanthropic, et cetera. Writing strong grant proposals, really understanding how you put together a competitive application. Effectively managing grant funding, that's something that can really trip folks up. For example, there's a lot of procurement requirements. If you're hiring contractors to carry out these grants, there are certain requirements you have to meet in order to be able to access these federal dollars. And so it really will help you know, help people who are wanting to apply for grants then be able to manage and meet the requirements effectively. Another thing that these TICTACs are going to try to do is help community members, local governments, et cetera, engage effectively with decision makers at all local, levels of government. So that may be, for example, a nonprofit understanding what is the state, regulatory process, and how do I engage to give our feedback about, issues that are impacting my community and how we want that reflected in policy. It's also going to give guidance on community engagement and how to facilitate meetings, provide translation and interpretation services where that may be appropriate. And then these TICTACs will also create and manage communication channels for direct access to resources and information. So these are really intended to be on the ground, providing information about how you engage in grant applications, and how you engage effectively with government at all levels. Next slide, please. So these services will be available to a whole range of folks, and I quite frankly, don't quote me on this, but I can't imagine they would turn anybody away, really. Individuals, businesses, and communities, nonprofits, and other types of organizations, rural and remote communities. That's a big focus here in Region 8. We have a huge rural population across our region, and so one of the things that we're really going to be focusing on here is how do we engage with rural communities? How do we make sure that they are able to access these services? Educational institutions will be able to access these services, local, tribal, and state governmental units, utility providers, healthcare providers, et cetera. It really is intended to be a one-stop shop. Next, please. So talking a little bit more specifically about kind of the status of the program. So the current iteration, we just finished up a national competition, and there were 17 centers that were selected, 3 that will serve nationwide and be helping coordinate all of the TICTACs together, as well as providing national databases, best practices, et cetera. And then there are 14 regional TICTACs, and you can see in my map, the stars are the regional TICTACs, and each of the blocks is the different EPA regions. One thing you may notice is that there is not a star within Region 8, which we were very bummed to find out that we didn't have a successful grant applicant for Region 8 specifically. But in the current plan is for one of the national TICTACs to provide those services for Region 8. So we will have services, but we have an exciting new opportunity opening up. If you could click it. I added a little animation here to be fancy. So we're soon going to be opening up a new competition for a Region 8 specific TICTAC. And so we released a sort of a pre-announcement that this opportunity will be becoming available, and we're going to release the notice of funding opportunity. It's essentially the grant competition will open for this in mid-July. And the idea is essentially to have a TICTAC that is hubbed here in Region 8 that will serve the Region 8 community specifically, and that isn't just one of the national TICTACs providing those services. So the initial selectees from the national competition are going to start opening their centers this summer. It's moving very quickly. So everyone will be able to start accessing services pretty soon. But then we are hoping to have the Region 8 specific TICTAC selected and awarded by the end of this calendar year, so that they would be able to start services next year. Next slide, please. So the TICTACs are really exciting. There are a number of other types of federal assistance or the technical assistance that you'll hear about now and also in just a minute. But the Clean School Bus program that I mentioned yesterday, there's a series of webinars and there's a lot of useful information on the website. The climate pollution reduction grants that I also talked about yesterday, we're going to have the climate innovation teams. More details to be announced on that, but they are essentially cohort-based teams that are available throughout the 4-year grant. And it's going to combine federal and contractor expertise with peer-to-peer learning, and will be helping support that process throughout the 4-year period. Our Superfund program also has reuse and redevelopment visioning assistance. So for communities that are located within Superfund sites, they have federal employees and contractors that can help them envision, what do we want the redevelopment of this to look like? How do we want, once the cleanup is done, how do we want this to benefit our community, and how to make that a reality? The Laboratory Services Division also has a number of technical experts that can be helpful if your communities have like scientific needs. So for example, they have a number of toxicologists and hydrologists that are available to help with how do you look at environmental data and how do you assess that. There are quality assurance experts that can be helpful with strategic project planning to inform data collection efforts. And there are laboratory chemists that can also answer questions about field sampling techniques, et cetera. So to the extent that you have like specific environmental data related questions, you can always reach out to our regional lab experts. And then I'm not going to go into these. No, go ahead. It's fine. I'm not going to go into these because we have some much more well-vetted experts that are going to be speaking about this in a minute. But we also have a number of technical assistance services available for water-related grants as well as the Brownfields program. But really would encourage you guys to check out the EJ Tic Tac program. It's really exciting, and we're hoping that they can be pretty central hubs for communities to figure out how to access these unprecedented resources. So I will wrap it up there. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to do a quick shift now into infrastructure. So if you're no longer presenting, you don't have to stay up here. So we need USDA Rural Development, EPA Water, EPA Brownfields, HUD, FEMA, and DOT up on, and we'll hand it over to Glenn to get us started.
Anyway, I wanted to ask anybody before we get started, has anybody checked the hunting license draw results for the Wyoming Game and Fish yet? Is anybody, like, are those posted?
Yeah.
They are posted? All right, I'm gonna have to check my cell phone soon. That's a big deal here in the state of Wyoming. I wanted to ask. There are some programs that everybody should really know about. And some of these funds aren't fully utilized in Wyoming, and they should be fully utilized. One of the programs that we have is our water and wastewater disposal pre-development planning grant. And so that is actually grant money that is available for towns and communities. I believe, Adam, is this for communities under 10,000?
Yeah.
For under 10,000, this is for you to help to plan your water projects. And the great thing about this grant that you do not have to go with USDA Rural Development. So you can use this money, decide what is the best for your community, identify the needs, and then look at the various funding sources out there. As it's been mentioned earlier, this really helps if you're going to us for an application, but this will help regardless of how you'd like to get that money. Along those lines, there's a very similar program that's called the Special Evaluation Assistance for Rural Communities. And that is a similar planning grant that's available. The difference between the two is that one does not require a match as far as to access. The other one does, but a little bit more money is available for this. We also have money available for broadband technical assistance. I really had to dig deep. I mentioned that we have 46 programs. This is run out of our national offices, but this is available to federally recognized tribes, state and local governments, institutions of higher educations and nonprofits. And so this is to help local communities access and receive broadband resources. So if you are looking at this, or if you're looking to establish a plan in your community for broadband, this is money that you should look at. The grants available for that are significant. I believe there is a national competition. It really didn't fall under infrastructure exactly, but I wanted to mention this. We have a whole community facilities programs. Those are largely loans, but they do fund hospitals, food banks, fire stations, police stations. We have a planning grant for that as well. So if your community is considering to take on a project like that, they want to conduct a feasibility analysis, they want to have access to an architecture, an engineer, there's money available for that as well. And have I missed anything, Adam, for our technical assistance programs or in the? Okay, that's it. And so again, I would encourage you, there's programs that I've left out today. Come see us at our booth if any of this rings a bell for us. And I'd really encourage everybody. I know water and wastewater was a big topic yesterday. please take advantage of those. Because I know in Wyoming, we haven't been using all the money for those pre-development grants. And when we don't use all the money, that money goes back, it goes to a national pool. And usually we love being in that national pool, bring extra money back to Wyoming. So we'd be glad to help get anybody started on that.
Good morning. I'm still Ben Benson. I work in the Water Division, the Environmental Protection Agency. You can bring up the next slide, please. So to shorten it up, that's okay. So we have kind of a suite of services, technical assistance services that are going to be, it kind of looks like a bingo card of technical assistance. And I can read through a few of those things if you can't find it, but EPA personnel are available to assist you in your water infrastructure needs of any kind. We know that there's a lot of TA relative to water infrastructure that's already happening right now. State agencies are probably already providing it to you. Other TA providers are probably already giving it to you. That's great. You're in excellent hands. Stay with them. EPA is trying to supplement that extra work that might be created now with the extra money. What we did was we gave the state of Wyoming 4 times the money and said, okay, you have to do 4 times the work too. So good luck with all that. We'll see you at the end of 4 years, right? So our extra funding that we have internally is the people power to provide and supplement the technical assistance that perhaps the state agencies can't get to, or just don't have the people at that time to be able to provide, right? Or there's some other special nuances. Just remembering from yesterday, Wyoming's SRF program, that is your strongest option for water infrastructure improvement. That is the place to go. And if you're already with them, you're on a path to get them, great. It is so strong that all of the EPA's TA efforts for the state of Wyoming are to be able to drive customers to the front door of the SRF program in Wyoming. That's how much we like it. That's how much we believe it's the strongest option for you. So all of the TA efforts that we're going to have and have available for you are to get you a step closer, a half step closer, break through one more milestone to get you applying for the SRF program in Wyoming. Okay. Oh, you did find it. Thank you. So the next, there's the bingo card. There it is. So again, there's lots of players in the TA game in the water world for sure. Find the best one that works for you. If any of these options look good to you and you want to contact us, please do. EPA's goal here is not to just step on toes because it's fun to do TA and get people confused, right? We want to make sure that every community that wants help gets heard and gets supported. And eventually in the long term, every community gets asked if they want help. That's our goal for this. At the same time, in consultation with our state agencies, our DEQs and our OSLEs, okay? If you're looking for an end around, we're still not the one to ask, right? We are going to be working with the state agencies to find out what the best solutions are, what the best options are. Maybe we drive you over there. Maybe there's other rural development options. EPA's money isn't the only money in town that could be available to you for water infrastructure even, okay? We have 3 ways of providing this TA, and you can leave the slide up. The Environmental Finance Center, we have a grantee for about $4.5 million for the next few years. You may have heard of them, the National Rural Water Association. I hope some of you have heard of them. We have them available to be able to provide even a broader suite of services that they have in the past, more so than this, just the trainings and webinars, some more kind of hand-to-hand support and assistance, asset management and rate financing, things like that. We have regional personnel, an influx of regional personnel to be able to provide a suite of these services as well. And then there are headquarters contractors for, I think, probably another $20 million worth of contract support at that level nationwide. So get a piece of that if you want, to supplement the personnel from the state agencies. So, and please do, we want to be able to use that money as quickly as we can as well. You can go to the next slide with the contact information too. So again, if you need a lift in making that next step towards SRF application, if you need a lift just understanding that next step on the SRF process or finding out some other options, some other federal funding options, please do contact any one of us or all of us. On the Region 8 side there on the left, we do have specialists with drinking water, clean water, the PFAS, the emerging contaminant piece. We have specialists in those areas, lead service line inventories, lead service line replacement specialists there as well, the EFC, and then funding stuff. If you wanted to go straight to headquarters and get a contractor from DC, you can do the big email there, the waterTA@epa.gov. It'll still be vetted through us and then also through the state as well. But that is kind of a blanket source where you can go to a national email box, and again, be heard, be supported, find a way to get you closer to the SRF. Thank you again for your time. Have a great day.
Good morning again. I am Barbara Benoit. I always follow Ben. And hopefully, as I said yesterday, I depend on my slides. So shall I repeat? Good morning. I'm Barbara Benoit, and I'm here to talk about partnerships and technical assistance for brownfields. Yesterday, I talked a lot about the opportunities of funding that are available. But I'd like to let you know that the Brownfields program is built completely on partnerships. Ultimately, our goal is to get properties that are not being used, that are blighted, that are boarded up, back into good reuse, continued tax base again, and just taking care of the blighted properties that make our downtown USA look like it needs help, if you will. Next slide, please. So again, a brownfield is a property that may have contamination. It doesn't necessarily have contamination, but it has delayed any reuse or redevelopment of the property. Next slide, please. So in this day and age of social media and connectivity, I'm going to try to go through our technical assistance, basically through how you can best tap into the resources and then follow up and contact us, if you will. The WB wire is the Western Brownfields wire. It's primarily region 8, though regions 9 and 10 sometimes are also involved. But this is one of the best ways to get in touch with us, see what's going on, the resources that are available, both technical assistance and grants. Next slide, please. These are the current grants within our region that were awarded just recently. Rollins has gotten a grant, and we're hoping to see more grant applications. Next slide, please. So this is our WB Wire website. Please take that down. You can also get on a listserv to receive it, but it's always available on our website. Next slide, please. So our targeted brownfield assessment program is a technical assistance program that is not costly, or it does not cost anything to you. EPA picks up the tab. Right now, Wyoming DEQ has money as well. They have their own targeted brownfield assessment program. Cindy Martinez is the person to contact at DEQ. We do phase 1, phase 2, as well as DEQ assessments and cleanup planning. Phase 1 ensures a liability protection. And so you need to get one. They have a shelf life of about 1 year, but if you're going to have a property transaction, it needs to be within 6 months. The application, again, is a very easy application, I promise you. We have a lot more funding for targeted brownfield assessments these days, and then it is a good way to get the process started. What we like to do is come in and do assessments, then communities can look at resources for cleanup, and then resources for redevelopment, visioning, and that sort of thing. Again, this is all about partnership building. Next slide, please. So again, our brownfields website is a very good place to start. This is the Region 8 one. This is the application for the targeted brownfield assessment. Next slide, please. We have our national brownfields website. It's full of resources, contact information, dates when our grants are going to be solicited. Next slide, please. And then the technical assistance to brownfields. Kansas State University has a TAB program. They do so much technical assistance for EPA. So it is a wonderful place to also tap into the resources. They will come to your community. They will put on workshops. They will help you with grant writing. They have a whole selection of technical assistance. Next slide, please. This is an example, and please visit their website. They have ongoing webinars. They'll show maybe another region or another areas the way they do business, but it helps to connect to how you can adopt that program or that approach to your community. Next slide, please. And then, so we have existing brownfields projects get access to our land revitalization and technical assistance. I talked about this yesterday with the Acme former power plant. It includes community visioning, where you pull your community together and ask them, what do you want? What do we need? Applications are year round instead of just at a limited part of the year. And then we, again, have a significant amount of increased funding for this. Next slide, please. Again, I showed this yesterday. These are 3 alternative visions for the former Acme power plant. It is such a vital part of the history of Sheridan. And so some of us are going to take a tour out to this site. If you're interested, come talk to me. Next slide, please. This is more about the partnership and how we build and stack resources. So at the very bottom, we have a financial feasibility study. That's important because it's hard to find funding to move into the development stage for reuse. Next slide, please. That's my contact information. Thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak to you and reach out to you. We do want to have Wyoming get into the game. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I didn't prepare a slideshow, so I'll just kind of go with it from here. But my name is Trent Love, so I'm a program analyst. I'm the program analyst in the HUD Wyoming field office. So first off, I'd like to thank Carolyn, Kathy, she may have escaped to get snacks, and Drew Palmer for facilitating this. So it's no easy feat to kind of get this many federal agencies all together in one roof. So to have that opportunity, definitely take advantage and come speak to any of us to see how we can help out. So anyways, to kind of move on. So as a career federal employee for HUD and a resident of Wyoming, I hope to see Wyoming prosper and use some of HUD's programs to kind of further develop equitable housing opportunities, as well as creating sustainable community developments and making those developments achievable. So as you know, mentioned yesterday by Mark, that HUD's mission is to provide strong, sustainable, and inclusive affordable housing. So however, there's a wide array in a large department. So there's a wide array of different grant opportunities available. And then, so trying to navigate some of those different funding streams can be a little daunting. And as field policy and management, it's our job to act as a representative for HUD and to be the front door for the community. So HUD has the opportunity to come to us, or people have the opportunity to come to HUD and know where, and they may have a question on, housing, or, but it may be more complex issue than just housing. It may be infrastructure development. So we were able to kind of talk to the community, know the municipalities that we work with, and be able to kind of figure out which department and which division within HUD might best fit what your questions may be directed to. So whether those are going to fall within the Community Development Block Grant Program, Lead Hazard Control or Healthy Homes, the Fair Housing Equal Opportunity Office, or even the FHA platform. So the HUD Wyoming field office staff, we're versed on all HUD programs. However, we are not the subject matter experts on any of HUD programs. So the good point is we have a state office in every state within our region. Mark, myself, and we have one other colleague that is not here today. We're here to kind of show you exactly where within HUD you might be able to receive some additional assistance and kind of make it easier. So as like Mark likes to say, hugging the bureaucratic porcupine, when you kind of get in bed with finding a little bit of the complexities of finding grant funding, especially in a department like HUD that has so many different grant opportunities and such an array of projects that we fund. So now that we got that, so as stated yesterday by Mark, we are the front door of HUD and essentially the connectors and conveners within our office. So between the nonprofits that we work with, public housing authorities, municipalities, and then the general public. To connect them with the program offices. So, and being a customer service focused office, we're primarily directing and navigating to kind of through the difficult bureaucratic nature of some of the federal programs that and the different grant opportunities that we have available. So to kind of work towards our common goal of housing, achieving affordable housing and community development projects. And under the direction of the current secretary, we are noticing, we do notice that a one size fits all approach doesn't work. And knowing that Wyoming is very specific in their rural and frontier neighborhoods, it can be difficult with capacity building to be able to kind of navigate that. So that's why our office is here to kind of assist in that process and be able to kind of pick down through exactly where HUD might be able to benefit your communities or your nonprofits, whichever you serve. So. And then I guess moving on to some of our current partnerships and technical assistance that we do provide. So I know that everyone here on the federal panels, we all, share the common goal of trying to make sure that all parts of Wyoming have the same knowledge and the same access to leverage federal resources. And in short, HUD funds programs to assist with housing issues, homelessness issues, and economic development. So, and one of our most impactful programs that Mark mentioned yesterday is actually the Community Development Block Grant, or CBDG, if anyone's familiar with that program. So under CDBG, it's an annual grant that's provided on a formula basis to states and entitlement communities. And entitlement communities in Wyoming, it's just Cheyenne at the moment. So those grant funds are used to help develop kind of viable communities, expand housing and economic opportunities for low and moderate low income families. And it's kind of known for its flexibility, which can empower communities to design and implement strategies based off of their needs and their priorities. So it's a ground up approach when it comes to that sense from federal funds. So, and in Wyoming, the state allocation of CBDG goes through the Wyoming Community Development Authority. So they are, one of our closest partners when administering the CBDG program for the state. And they kind of decide the priorities on how the CBDG funds can be allocated. And then they are a very integral part in the success of how HUD's one of HUD's most impactful grant programs is administered throughout the state. So if you have questions regarding the CBDG program or how you may be able to, tap into some of those grants funds that are provided by HUD, the Wyoming Community Development Authority would be your first stop on exactly kind of identifying a little bit of information or even, asking some questions. So their staff has a wealth of knowledge about the CBDG program and how it's administered throughout the state, and then how they disperse those HUD dollars throughout the communities since it is done through the statewide allocation. So, and then in addition to that, for large scale economic development, the Section 108 Loan Guarantee Program, it's going to provide CBDG recipients with the ability to leverage their annual allocations to access low cost financing for economic development, for housing, for public facilities, or even for infrastructure projects. And like I said, if you have any additional questions on whether or not you would qualify for that or how to apply for those different grant opportunities, I would implore you to please reach out to the WCDA, or you can reach out to our office and we can connect you with the liaison and kind of help you get your foot in the door with that. So now that my caffeine's wearing off a little bit, I'm going to briefly go over some of the technical assistance opportunities available through HUD. So Like I kind of mentioned earlier, HUD is a very large department within the federal government, and we have array of programs ranging from homelessness to housing to economic development to job development and job creation. So there's an array of different programs available, and because of that, we actually do our technical assistance on a personalized basis based off of the grant itself. So depending on the various program offices within HUD, they may have their own technical assistance providers for specific grants. And I know that can be very daunting to think, there's not a one-stop shop for TA assistance from HUD. However, that is what the Office of Field Policy and Management, which myself and Mark, that's our responsibility to be able to talk to you guys and figure out exactly who you need to be talking to, how you need to approach a situation and the best kind of motives to kind of get your foot in the door and learn some information on how we can better assist our communities or municipalities that we serve and work for. And yeah, I think that's all I have today. So Mark and I will be here for the rest of the day. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by. We are here to help. I know it's hard to say that coming from the government, but sometimes it's actually true. So, but we're approachable and feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Right. Much shorter. I'm Katie Baum. I am the Region 8 BRIC, or Building Resilient Infrastructures and Communities Technical Assistance Lead. I am not from Wyoming. I'm from Billings, Montana. Please don't hold that against me. So slide, please. So today, as a kind of a brief overview from what we discussed yesterday from the FEMA side. So we are in the pre-disaster side of FEMA. I think when a lot of people think about FEMA, they think response, they think recovery. FEMA has an entire arm of our agency that works with you pre-disaster. So really trying to make you resilient to a disaster before it happens. So there are a plethora of mitigation grants. These grants are what our technical assistants cycle around. So today I'll be kind of referencing more of the BRIC side, or the bigger pot of the new honey pot, if you will, that FEMA has, as well as like flood mitigation assistance, hazard mitigation grant program, or HMGP. And then you also see on this bottom line some additional grants. HHPD is a newer grant. It is around high hazard potential dams. Then we have FMAG, and then also new, we have the Safeguarding Tomorrow Revolving Loan Fund, which is called the STORM. Slide, please. Slide. So here at Region 8, oh, they got a little skewed. Here at Region 8, we have an entire technical assistance team that is here and ready to support Region 8 communities, especially here in Wyoming. I'm really glad Ben kind of mentioned how we work alongside the state. We are here to support your state team, which is, the Office of Homeland Security, Director Bud, she's amazing. Your State Hazard Mitigation Officer, Shamika McDonald, who kind of hold the money and kind of hold your pathway forward in a lot of this kind of money. We are here to really support and supplement and provide technical assistance on a range of matters, as you can kind of see below, and coordinate technical assistance across the mitigation division at Region 8. We are open to any and all conversations you want to have around risk resilience and hazard mitigation. If your point of contact is definitely the state, but we are here to have any of these conversations with you. As Ben mentioned, maybe FEMA funding isn't the most appropriate funding for you. Maybe we can then point you to a different agency or work with you to get to a different pot of money that can actually be your best honey pot, if you will. Slide, please. So some technical assistance case studies we have in Region 8. So one of the technical assistance sub-programs, if you will, that we run, our team runs, is application support and review. So in terms of FEMA funding being a national competition, we heard from a lot of communities, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, that these grants are daunting, and they definitely are daunting. And we are struggling to put together a competitive application. So from our end, what we will do is actually support you and your community in creating a technical application, because these are often large scale infrastructure projects, and although they are technical, we like to see the fluff. We like to see the fluffy stuff. I'm sure you talked about this in the grants writing segment you had earlier. And so a lot of engineers, a lot of these firms that are writing the applications might not be good at doing that. And so what we will do as a team is actually support you in writing that application, putting together your benefit cost analysis, getting you from point A to point B to feel confident in submitting into that national competition. And we have a pretty good track record so far. So that image that you see is actually the city of Mobridge in South Dakota. We did a ASR with them last year for both the flood mitigation assistance grant program and the BRIC program. Secondly, you'll see the URM schools special project that we're doing in Utah. I was in Salt Lake City last week, and we were actually talking to school district facility managers about seismic risk and how to approach as a school district and from a facilities manager point of view, how to approach FEMA grants and how to actually start building a cohort approach to it to go after these FEMA grants. So we can provide workshops, we can provide trainings, we can do all of these kind of things as a team. We then also have a plethora of technical assistance that we are providing to tribal governments here in Region 8. So the Chippewa Cree Direct Technical Assistance, we'll get into in just a second. But basically Chippewa Cree is at the end of a utility line. They experience a lot of blackout and brownout situations and extreme weather events. And so they said, hey, we want to be more energy resilient, but we don't even know where to begin. And so we worked with them to create a project around microgridding their college campus and other critical infrastructure around their community to then pursue a BRIC national grant. So we can help you in creating what a project even looks like if you don't even know where to begin. And then the Fort Peck EPA and FEMA pilot partnership. This is a really awesome project. They have a huge flood risk sitting along the Missouri River. And so again, they said, we don't even know where to begin. And something that's unique to them, they didn't have a hazard mitigation plan, which is something you need to get into a lot of FEMA programming. However, Wyoming, you are kicking butt. You guys have 98% coverage. So honestly, most of you are probably good to go. But some communities don't have a hazard mitigation plan. So we are working to develop a hazard mitigation plan for them, and then also building out specific site designs for critical community assets across the Missouri River to build those resilient to flood. Slide, please. So next I'm going to get into a new formalized program that I really want to encourage your communities to look into. This is called the BRIC Direct Technical Assistance Program. Slide, please. The BRIC Direct Technical Assistance Program is run by national, but it is really facilitated by the region. So if you enter this program and get selected, you will be stuck with me for 36 months. This is a 3-year technical assistance commitment by FEMA. So we don't just come up to you, do one thing and then say, bye, I hope you can get this still, I hope you can still move forward with this. We stick with you for 36 months. This can be from plan development. This can be from risk assessment. If you know you have flood risk, but you don't even know what a mitigation project could look like, we can help you identify that project. We can help you find other federal funding. This is it's a nimble, flexible program, and there is a lot of support that you can be provided. So I would really point you towards this program. It's going to open in September for this year, and it will close next January. So there's plenty of opportunity to get into this program. And again, we will work with the states to kind of actually facilitate that program as you move forward. So although a national program, I promise there is a regional lens to it. We won't just leave you high and dry with national. Slide, please. So you can see here, this is an old map. In May, the DTA program welcomed 40 new communities into this program. Over the past 2 years, it was only 28. So 40 new communities in 1 year. They are looking to potentially onboard another 30 to 40 next year. This is a big program. The aim is to really transform a lot of FEMA into being more flexible, I know you don't think of it when you think of federal governments, but better customer service and a better format to support communities and actually what communities need, not what we think you need. So requests again are going to open in FY23, or sorry, in September 2023 for the FY23 program. Please come find us if you want to talk more about it. I think it's a really good avenue to get some of our communities moving into what resilience can look like. Slide. I wanted to provide a really brief case study on what BRIC DTA can do. So this is, I always buff this one up. CAMI. Is that right, Kyle? Kyle's from Idaho, so I always have to go to him like, is this the right pronunciation? So this is CAMI in Idaho. This is a population of 1,200 people. They entered the DTA program to, again, just identify what is a realistic, feasible mitigation project to reduce our flood risk. We know we have floods, we have a history of floods, but we do not know where to begin to identify funding sources and then to actually prioritize the mitigation projects, because you could have a ton of identified projects, but you might not know which one should actually go first. And then also moving forward from that, looking also at wildfire and landslide risk. So although some people joke that F and FEMA stands for flood, it's not just flood. We do a lot of hazard work. So please come talk to us at the table down below to talk more about technical assistance and what we can provide to you. And then here's my contact information, as well as our team inbox. You can email us for literally anything. We are happy to get you the right people or look at how we can work with you. Thank you.
Good morning. Morning, everybody. Hank Rettinger here again, back with you this morning. Federal Highway Administration, Department of Transportation. And I wanted to do a quick mea culpa, maybe. I used a term yesterday and somebody called my attention to it. NOFO stands for Notice of Funding Opportunity. So apologies for the government acronyms. In any case, Notice of Funding Opportunity. We have a couple of those for our programs that are coming due very soon. Our Safe Streets and Roads for All program is closing on July 10th. And again, that's roughly $1 billion a year. And it's real tough for state DOTs to get into that pot of money because it's more so intended for locals, local communities, counties, cities, MPOs, those kind of agencies to get into that pot of money. So shout out for that program coming up very soon. We also have our Wildlife Crossing program that is going to close August 1st. And so again, get the information from us or off the internet and get your applications in if you're interested in that. We have the Carbon Management Program that's coming up on July 18th. And then we also have the PROTECT program, which stands for Promote Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation. Apologies again for government acronyms. Essentially, if you're looking at resiliencies many different times, it doesn't just have to be floods. But if you're looking at resiliency in your transportation infrastructure, that's a good program to take a look at. And that'll be coming up on August 18th for when the NOFO Notice of Funding Opportunity is closing. So those are just a handful of programs of the roughly 30 or, I can't even count anymore. We have a lot of different grant programs. If you come see me downstairs, I've got a big, huge matrix that you can start with and looking through for the program that might suit your needs for transportation. And then we can get you some more of the fact sheets if you have a good idea of which programs you might be interested in. So on that, I'll kind of move on to technical assistance. Our agency, some of our grant programs do require benefit cost analysis, and our agency has done trainings that are available virtually and nationally on doing benefit cost analysis. So if you're interested in that, I need a way to reach out to folks and let folks know when our technical assistant webinars come up. So Kathy, I think there was a mention of a stakeholder group here that was, I need to get involved with that.
Absolutely, our inner working group.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I make a note of that and get you in there with.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Then moving on, we also have other opportunities of pre-recorded webinars and things that are sometimes available on our websites or on YouTube. And again, we can communicate those out. And we also, once we've got email lists set up for various stakeholders that are interested in our programs, we can communicate out when the NOFA funding opportunities come available. So that's all great stuff for technical assistance. And then the way it works in most of our grant programs is you put together the application package. We can't write it for you. We can give you lots of technical assistance on digging through the NOFO and figuring out how to describe your project. We can provide some of that advice, but we can't write the grant for you. And then once that goes up to Office of the Secretary in DC, they ultimately do basically the first round cut of projects that are being considered. Then there, at some point during the grant review process, it comes back to our office, and we provide information to Washington DC on eligibility of the projects and applicants' capacity and to be able to deliver the project. So again, getting to know us and making sure that we know that you're interested in our programs and what kind of projects you've got coming helps us give the best advice to the folks in DC who are making a lot of these decisions on which projects get selected and funded. And then it's kind of a catch ball that happens after that. Once projects are awarded, we take on the remaining responsibility through whether it be a planning grant or an action grant or construction. We take it on after that, and we help you through the plethora of federal requirements that come in after that. So we are definitely in the business of technical assistance to all of our recipients. And another common misconception I've heard, you do not have to be a state DOT to apply to our grant programs. So take a look in our notice of funding opportunity. If you're an eligible recipient, you can apply directly to our programs. You do not have to go through as a pass-through through YDOT. Now, there might be reasons why you would want to get YDOT involved if it's a transportation project. And they certainly have their programs that can assist locals with that. But again, if you just apply to our programs and you've got the match for the project, we can direct recipient to any, but almost any agency that's an eligible recipient under the program. So yeah, I'll try to stick close to the 5-minute limit here, and that's what I've got. Thank you all very much.
All right, we are in the 10-minute stretch, okay? So we have 2 more presentations. They're gonna focus on workforce. If you're a federal presenter and you're not presenting in this round, please stay local because we're gonna have about 10 minutes for questions from the group. So we can switch on out and Glenn, you're always leading us off. Thanks so much.
So I think this is gonna be the last time you'll see me today, but please stop by the booth. And I also want to mention, as far as technical assistance, like other federal agencies, we cannot write your grant for you, but we will provide you as much. We will provide you as much, assistance as we can for that grant. So please call us. We're always here to help. There's 2 programs I want to bring your attention to as far as workforce development and technical assistance. We have the Rural Business Development Grant. This is for develop rural businesses. And what we mean by that is businesses that have 50 or fewer employees or $1 million or less in gross revenue. And the entities that are eligible for that includes towns, state agencies, nonprofits, and federally recognized tribes. Basically, what this grant provides money for is training and technical assistance. That includes project planning, business plans, feasibilities analysis. So if there is a rural businesses that you're interested in bringing to your community, this is a really good place to start. And one of the great things about this that you own that plan. That is yours to for you to use in the future. So if it doesn't work out with the business that you're immediately looking at, you have that information available for you in the future. Another program that's available is that if you work at all with entrepreneurs, we have both a grant and a loan program that's available. And the entities that are eligible for that are nonprofits, federally recognized tribes, and institutions of higher education. And so that provides money. You could either have a revolving loan fund that you could provide those monies to local businesses, to local entrepreneurs for things like various capital expenses or anything, or to get started. It also has a grant program that's available to that as well. The grant program is more focused on training and helping entrepreneurs get started. So maybe a college or a town, if those are interested in that, those are two programs that are available.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy, again with the SBA. And as Carolyn said, we work for you. And the good thing about Team SBA is we're here. We're in Wyoming as our resource partners. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes. Next slide, please. A lot of the slides are going to be very similar to what I showed yesterday, but I have a couple different things to add today. With SBA, you know, we are here helping small businesses. And what you're going to find is a lot of the opportunities that have been spoken of in the last 2 days are opportunities that nonprofits or municipalities are going to be applying for, right? And so you're going to be a level below that on working through those opportunities. And we'll tell you a little bit about how we can help you with that. Next slide. We have partners around the state. We at SBA and our resource partners at the Wyoming Business Council, we work very closely together to help support small business throughout Wyoming. We co-fund the Small Business Development Center and the Women's Business Center, which are two resources in the state that provide counseling and training. And, you know, my team at SBA, myself, we're on the phone with the Business Council or emailing, you know, multiple times a week. And so if you remember nothing else about what I say today, remember that you can talk to any of us who do small business development in the state of Wyoming, whether at SBA, the Wyoming Business Council, with our resource partners at the Small Business Development Center. We work really closely together. We know each other. We, you know, have each other's text numbers. We can help you connect with any of the partners if you don't know which one to reach out to. So I'll talk just very briefly on this slide. You'll see Small Business Development Center Network, the Community Navigator Pilot Program, Women's Business Center, and the VBOC. Next slide. Okay. As I mentioned yesterday, Wyoming Small Business Development Center Network. I believe Jill is in the room, or yep, she's back in the back. She's sharing a table with us downstairs. So if you have any questions about SBDC, you know, how you can get free advising, get connected with their advisors, come talk to us. The thing about Wyoming too is we're so small that we can be responsive to what you need. So if there is a type of training that you need for your business and you're not seeing it, come talk to us. We'll find a way to connect you with that training or make it possible for you. We can come to your community. If you've got a critical mass of business, and in Wyoming, that's like 5, 10 businesses that need a specific amount of training, even fewer sometimes, well, come. Help us, put something together for your community. If you want to get businesses together and have something happen in your community, just let us know, because we don't always know what you need. And we need to hear that from you. Next slide. Community Navigator Pilot Program is a program of the SBDC right now that is funded by the SBA. It's a national pilot program intended to increase equity and outreach and access to capital and other resources of the SBA. So we've got, you see there are 6 different additional spokes right now working on this program. And the goal is just to make sure we're doing everything we can to get underserved or underestimated small businesses in connection with these resources. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that small businesses, there isn't a lot of grant funding directly for you, but there is a lot of grant funded technical assistance that is free to you that you can access around the state, and we'll help you find that. Next slide. The Wyoming Women's Business Center, another great partner based in Laramie, serves the whole state. They've got a lot of training, really focus as well on helping artisans, as I mentioned yesterday. Next slide. Big Sky Veterans Business Outreach Center, based in Billings, but serves the entire state of Wyoming. We do a lot of work as well down at the base, down at Effie, with the Boots to Business program that helps service members who are transitioning out to start businesses. We also do reboot programs. A lot of times those are virtually. Jordan Belzer on our team is our veterans rep. And so if you are a veteran, military spouse, we can help you start a business, because if you have served in the military, dollars to donuts, you've got what it takes to run a small business. Veterans are extremely successful in running businesses, and we've got a ton of resources to help you do that. Besides SBA funded resource partners, there are a ton of other resources around the state. There's the Apex Accelerator, which is a program of the SBDC, DoD funded, helps small businesses access federal contracting. We work really closely with them. SBDC has a market research center, can provide really amazing market intelligence for you. That's funded by the Business Council. Impact 307, great opportunities for incubators around the state. If you've got some kind of business that you're looking to launch, they've got some pretty cool startup competitions going that have prize money as well. And Manufacturing Works is a program that can help manufacturers with all sorts of things. So come talk to us. We'll be at the resource tables. Deb and I, our deputy director, she and I will be here. Come talk to us. SBDC is here. Go talk to Jill. And Kelly Hagler-Cornish, I think, is still here with SBIR program. I've seen her today. So there's lots of resources there for you. Next slide. We talked about capital yesterday, so I'm going to skip that today, but come talk to us one-on-one. Next slide. Next slide. And talk just a very small bit more about government contracting. And the reason is that one of the things that we know is that federal contracting is one of the most regulated processes in the world, right? Like, it's very regulated, but we know how to do it, and we know how to help you do it. And our partners at the Apex Accelerator, this is what they're funded to do. One of the things that we used to do a great deal in the state that was have matchmaking opportunities, things like this, except for with contracting officers and small businesses connecting one-on-one. A lot of those have been done virtually since COVID. We did one in Cheyenne in March, had a great turnout. Back in the day, Senator Enzi used to sponsor the GrowBiz conference, Government Resources and Opportunities for Business. It was a statewide opportunity for businesses to connect. That's been virtual the last couple of years. If it's important to you and makes a difference to see that happen in person, talk to Jill Klein, talk to me, let us know that it matters for you to do these things in person, because even though these are regulated processes, Business still happens by knowing people and knowing, being able to tell a contracting professional what you have to offer and what your business can provide, and understanding what the government needs and making it easy for them. I guarantee you, if you're able to provide an excellent quality product, service, construction, and you understand the federal acquisition regulations, and you are easy to work with and provide great customer service, you're going to build amazing relationships with federal agencies and be able to get a lot of work. Okay, next slide. Okay, a little bit more about contracting there. I think that next slide. Last thing I'll mention is the other thing that SBA does is disaster assistance. We used to be the best kept secret, but after COVID, a lot of businesses worked with SBA to get economic injury disaster loans, paycheck protection program loans. So we're seeing a lot more businesses that know us. And so if you have any issues with those programs, come talk to us. We'll try to help you. You know, those are things that we can do to provide customer service. Next slide. And that's really all I have to say. We're here to help you. And if you don't know who you need to talk to in small business in Wyoming, come talk to any of us. Talk to Wyoming Business Council, SBDC, SBA, other resource partners. We'll figure out how to help you, and we'll come to your community to do it if you need us to. Thank you.
So I guess I lied about having to see me again. I just wish I didn't have to eat my words so quickly. But a lot of what we talked about is grants and technical assistance. But I know what a lot of communities are really missing is that they don't have the horsepower, or they need warm bodies. They need more employees. And there's an agency here that does offer solutions. AmeriCorps is here. That does offer volunteers. So I think everybody should hear about them. I didn't know about them, but Julie, if you could come up and just say a few words about AmeriCorps before we stop this part of the session.
Tough to be keeping them before break. Oh, you didn't get break.
Can you even see me over the? Glenn, thank you very much for allowing me just a few minutes. So as Glenn mentioned, we are a federal agency. We are AmeriCorps, and what we provide is people power. So we have a variety of programs that works locally with communities. You guys tell us what those needs are, and we help you determine. We have team-based programs that come in that can do anything from trail building to disaster response. They've rebuilt cabins that have burned from a fire. So that's the team base. We have a capacity building program that brings volunteers and members into a community for a year. And they basically can write grants. Some of the grants that you're hearing about, this is people power that can help you write the grants. They basically increase your capacity. They can develop programs. They can enhance, do outreach. They can expand to a different demographic. Basically, you guys are in the driver's seat for what you guys need in your community. We have programs that focus on seniors, and you guys can decide. For us, seniors is 55 and older. So I'm there. So, but we have 3 different programs that work with kids in schools, help people remain independent in their home, and just general volunteerism. And then we also have what's called AmeriCorps state programming that helps do some of the boots on the ground to do direct service. So you might see them volunteering in a classroom. A lot of the programs that we have are stipended. Not all are. And when someone finishes their year of service or their term of service, they receive an education award that then gets invested. It's equal to the Pell Grant. So if you have a young student that gets invested a lot of time locally back into like Sheridan College or the University of Wyoming for them to be able to continue their studies. So please come and see us. We are something, I appreciate Glenn letting us know we're not we're probably different than most federal entities that you're used to hearing about, but we do help you provide that people power. So we're downstairs. come and see us. We would love to just hear about what you need. We do provide technical assistance as well, so we have the ability to be able to walk you through the process from start to finish. And then if you have members, we have somebody that is one-on-one assigned to work directly with you. So thank you again. It's great to be here.
Kathy, I'm gonna look at you. Should we save questions to the meet and greet or should we?
Let's before that, let's ask a few.
Okay.
Just in case.
Yeah, does anyone have any immediate questions for any of the presentations provided this morning? Yeah.
Sir.
Well, thank you. I'm Jim Gill. I'm a mayor of one of the smaller cities, Worland, Wyoming, and it's just on the west side of those beautiful Bighorn Mountain ranges out there. And I just wanted the chance to say, you're bureaucrats. We're not supposed to like you, by darn, but you proved that you're caring people and willing to serve communities under 10,000. That's music to our ears, folks. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And the others that aren't here.
That's what happens. You just like learn to kind of like us, which we apologize in advance. Thank you so much for saying that. Any other questions?
All right. Oh, here. Yeah, Joel, what do you think? They're not standing up saying something. We wouldn't know how to act.
I figured, I was afraid that would happen. My question is for HUD. Housing is a big issue, I think, all across Wyoming and including Shoshone, where I'm from. And we're a mid-sized community. I don't know, you're sort of a big, Worland in Wyoming is in the top 25%, Gil. I don't know, but in any event, but I've been looking at working with rural development, some and discussing and providing housing for moderate income, workforce housing, if you will, attainable housing. But HUD's, I believe HUD is more what rural development calls moderate income. I believe that's quite a bit higher than what HUD allows. And that correct? Could you sort of explain that a little bit and limits on income and still be eligible for HUD?
Well, it would vary program to program. So there are restrictions. It sounds like you're referring to our affordable Section 8 programs. And there are different types of Section 8. Well, that is where they basically charge rent. In a nutshell, they charge rent based on a percentage of your income, 30% of your adjusted gross income. So you could even get that worked down to zero. But there's project-based Section 8, and then there's a voucher-based Section 8. The Cheyenne Housing Authority is our statewide entity that handles our voucher program, and they service it for the state of Wyoming. If it's a project-based Section 8, we have those projects, they're dotted all over the state, and that's where the subsidy lies with the unit itself. It's not transferable. And HUD has a contract with the private owner that owns those places for that subsidy, which pays the rent. Now, that is the low income, 30% of AMI is probably where you're landing, area median income, forgive me. But there are other programs that HUD partners with. We partner with developers to provide other equity sources to be able to build new housing, but that's going to be through a private-public type of partnership. And I mean, I can give you, there are a number of developers that we work with in Wyoming that provide some of these resources, particularly through the tax credit program, which again, the WCDA is our Wyoming Community Development Authority, is our tax credit allocation entity in the state of Wyoming. I could bore the hell out of you with this subject, but I'm happy to have the conversation with you. It could literally take hours, but that raises the area median income levels to anywhere from 60% of the area median income levels to 120% of the area median income levels. And a lot of those available units could also be market rate. But to be able to entice that type of development is going to take municipalities to be a lot more flexible, find ways to, provide equity sources themselves. Like when I was mentioning earlier, it's going to be a private-public type of partnership. That's really how you're going to get these deals done. And HUD can come in and support those deals through various equity streams like our home funds, CDBG, as Trent was discussing earlier, other sources of equity to help get these projects to actually pencil so they're viable to actually get built. We're finding with rising interest rates and rising construction costs these days, those deals continue to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And so we would partner with other agencies to get some of these things done, and developers who specialize in doing these type of projects. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Mark. And Glenn, I feel like you might have some things to say about this, but we hear you all loud and clear that with workforce, when you're building up a workforce, that housing is the thing that comes right before it. And so we've been working as a federal team to have those discussions on who needs to be at the table to get some housing within Wyoming. And for that missing middle is what we're calling it, of like the people who who are working here and need housing in order to do it. So we are having those conversations. But without having anything on the ground yet, I don't want to, we're hoping for it, and Glenn's going to be there to break ground. But we're hoping to start addressing those issues around housing.
Yes, thanks for that. We, Energy Shoshone, we just, working with the developers, sold them some land at 50% appraised value to help incentivize building some multifamily housing. But our issue is, and then he's working with rural development with that. So but do you have anything for single family housing or any mechanism in the HUD for ownership, or they're working towards ownership? That would be my question, but thank you. Appreciate the information.
There are, by the way, and I'll connect with you later. I'll probably be getting pulled over by that cop that's always sitting there in Shoshone. That's somebody that knows you every time. Yeah.
I think we'll go ahead and transcend then into our state partners. If you'd like to come up and take your place, and Brandy is going to be our moderator for that. And in the meantime, Jackie, should we draw while they're coming up?
That would be great. Is there anyone that would like their name in the jar who did not sign on a little piece of paper here for the 2 items donated by Senator Lummis? A nice wooden cutting board and the wine glasses by Senator Barrasso. So we'll draw 2 names.
We have some states.
If there are no other takers, I'll mix this up and let someone make the draw so they can get on with this show. I'll mix it up.
Gwen James. And are we drawing for the glasses or the cutting board? First pick. First pick, Gwen James. You get to pick. Would you like the wine glasses or the cutting board? Okay, Senator Lummis will give to Gwen James the cutting board. We'll write that on the back of your name. We get to draw one more. Okay, we'll dig deep and. Oop. One, please. There you go. Okay. Teresa Montgomery. Teresa, you get the wine glasses. I'll put these on there and take them down to the girls downstairs. Thank you, Kathy.
I know, like my bad posture just wants to.
I think it's all you, Brandy.
Good morning. I'm Brandy Harlow. I'm the Northeast Regional Director for the Wyoming Business Council. I want to thank all of you for being here today. We really appreciate it. Now you've heard from your federal partners. Now we're going to transition to some of our state programs. With that, we've only got about 5 minutes per presenter, and we want to make sure and save time for questions and answers at the end. So we're going to try to float through these pretty quickly. Just a quick plug for the Business Council. We have several regional directors in the audience here, and the Business Council does have grant programs for local governments for infrastructure. So if you have an infrastructure program, please get a hold of your regional director. They are here to help you through the process. With that, I'm going to have each panelist introduce themselves and have about 5 minutes, and then we will hopefully have some time for questions. So I'll turn it over to YDOT.
Good morning. I'm John Davis with the Wyoming Department of Transportation. We're the State Department of Transportation. Also with me is Casey Brown, and she's going to take you through some slides in a moment. Before that, I would like to point out that Allie Reagan from the department is also here, and Carson James I saw in the hall earlier, so he's here as well. So we have plenty of bandwidth for one-on-one later, and we look forward to speaking with you at that time. Certainly like to thank the delegation, Senators Barrasso and Lummis, and of course, Governor Gordon for convening this fine panel. We watched a little of the summit yesterday electronically, and that worked beautifully. But at times, at least I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. So I'm sorry, we're going to pour a little bit more on you. You heard a little bit yesterday from our federal partners at the Federal Highway Administration, Carlos and Hank a little bit more this morning. So we're going to give this the YDOT flavor. And to run us through the slides, I'll turn it over to Casey.
And hopefully not radically contradict anything that FHWA said, since they're right there in the front. So slide, please. So today we'll just kind of talk about how YDOT can support you. Slide, please. Starting off with just kind of common things we found on federal infrastructure grants that we've gone through or we've discussed with local entities before. I won't harp on these too much because I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of this throughout the week, but there are excitingly a lot more opportunities just for locals to directly access those funds with no state DOT getting in their way or hoops like that to jump through. There's a lot more emphasis on collaboration and partnerships. For us, that's been, we write letters of support for local projects and vice versa, but it can also, we've had, local businesses come talk to us about how they could work with local entities and provide like in-kind match. So there's a lot more exciting opportunities. Though it can be kind of overwhelming at first. We've even found as a state DOT, the more cooks you have in the kitchen can be a bit much at first, but the shared kind of knowledge and resources ends up being really beneficial on the back end. And a lot of the federal discretionary applications do seem to have a lot more emphasis on basically cooler projects focused on safety, equity, resilience, and more multimodal, multifaceted projects instead of just capacity. And that's where I really think actually locals have the advantage even on us as the state DOT when we apply. You guys have definitely what I would call sexier
juicier projects. You guys have pathway and transit and community connections. We've talked with one community that was looking at doing like a gateway project for all kind of the entrances into the city. And that is much more appealing, I would imagine, for FHWA than when I go to my engineers and they're like, well, how about a pavement rehabilitation? A gateways project versus a pavement rehabilitation. So you guys definitely do have the edge once you kind of get your feet under you with the grant writing. Slide, please. I won't go into the types of discretionary grants too much because you guys have got so much information on that and it's just more acronyms. But some of these Hank mentioned, these are ones that we have had communities come to us to discuss and kind of strategize and get our opinions on. And we've provided letters of support for communities for these types of grant programs, some things they have in common and things that we look out for when we're recommending a program to a community or when we're applying ourselves is, you know, is there a rural focus? Is there a good competitive match, especially for rural areas? And do the eligibilities fit kind of the scale of project we want? And again, excitingly, a pattern we have been seeing is a lot of local, smaller projects are getting selected for these programs, especially the RAISE program and with Safe Streets and Roads for All. I don't even think we can apply for that program without a local entity attached to us. So that's really good for you guys. Slide, please. And so our kind of stance on federal grants is we see it as a really good way for just the state of Wyoming to get more infrastructure money. And so we like to help and encourage you all to kind of go forth and conquer, and we will communicate and facilitate rather than administer those discretionary grants. Slide, please. And what that communication facilitation looks like on our end, there are certain YDOT programs that Hank alluded to that are pass-through programs, and they're a little bit more hands-on in helping you guys manage. Those you might have heard of are transportation alternatives, CMAQ, or basically dust suppression, transit. We have some airport improvement and highway safety grants for locals. And there are multiple offices in YDOT that you can contact or contact us, contact Ally, and we will get you to the right spot. We also provide supporting materials on our website and different kind of resources, links to really good resources on FHWA and USDOT's website, as well as some just kind of step-by-step how to submit a grant using grants.gov, which is how a lot of these federal infrastructure grant discretionary grants are submitted. And also feel free to contact us. Like I said, there's multiple contact points around YDOT. You can call the main line and they will ship you to one of us and we'll get you to the right person. But we love discussing, you know, strategies on grants. You know, what do you guys think of this project idea? That's one of the best parts of our jobs. I'll kind of speak for John there, is getting to interact with locals and kind of get excited about new opportunities in the state. And generally, we do support you through kind of sharing information and resources, discussing project ideas and strategies, and providing you letters of support. Unfortunately, we do not have the resources or bandwidth to provide matching funds, write or submit your grants for you, or administer those grants on the back end. There is technical assistance available both through us and through USDOT. You know, as much as I would like to write grants kind of all day and all night, my corgi and cats would be very displeased and miss me too much. So, and John and I, you're looking at the only grant writers in YDOT. So we keep our hands full just getting our grants through and supporting you guys. So unfortunately, we cannot be hands-on with writing or submitting or the money, but we'll support you in any other way we can. So with that, John, do you have anything that I missed or messed up?
Nothing messed up, Casey. I just want to close with a success story. So in the RAISE grants, you're asking yourself, can we do this? Well, Lincoln County, anyone here from Lincoln County? Lincoln County succeeded in obtaining a RAISE grant last year, a multimodal planning study. So it certainly is possible. And we look forward to working with you and to speed dating.
My name is Janet Jarris. I have a little girl's voice. So I'm going to try to use this mic and let me know if I'm not loud enough or if I talk too fast. I work for Wyoming State Parks and I work in the trail section. My colleagues Naomi Lopez and Luisa Lopez are here and they will be at our table. And also with us is Bryn Harshman, who works for the Outdoor Rec program. Some of you know her from their grant program, and she's also here to discuss any issues and learn about their programs. I manage the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, and this grant, if you're city, county, recreation district, school district, college, or tribe is planning to acquire land for outdoor recreation or develop outdoor recreation, this grant can double your money. So it's a federally funded grant. We administer it with the help of National Park Service. The funding comes from the Outer Continental Shelf mineral receipts, so it's not tax money that funds this program. It's a 50-50 reimbursable grant. Grants can be up to $450,000 of federal funds. We have about $2.5 million annually, and we generally fund about 10 grants a year. It's competitive. This last year was the first year we ever had competition, though. Let's see. One of the caveats with this grant is that when you acquire a land and water conservation grant for a property, that property then is set aside for outdoor recreation into perpetuity. So you want to think about that as this land that you're going to want to be for outdoor rec forever. So you make that promise forever, as does the state of Wyoming. We have a pre-application that is due July 1st, and then the application is due November 30th. It's an extensive planning to make this happen because they're construction grants basically. So you need to do, of course, all that planning you would do for a construction grant, the budget planning. But the most important part that I think sometimes gets missed is partnershiping with your community and getting their input. You don't want to be far down the road with this project or any construction project and learn that the neighbors are not happy with it or that your partners are not happy with it. So you want to include them up front and also get the input of any tribal entity that might be interested in that land. So you want to do that right up front, and it doesn't have to be extensive, but you do need their input. We will help you with your grant management to learn about that. This is actually a really fun grant if you're a small town and you've never managed a federally funded grant. This is kind of a fun one to get your feet through the door. We provide a training to help you know how to do your all of your procurement processes and then how to report to us on those funds. And it's a short training, it's virtual. And then we will help walk you through that if you need any help with that. And then after the grant is closed, you're expected to maintain that property forever for outdoor recreation. That is pretty easy, isn't it? We're here to help you. We love working with small towns, but any town, county, like I said, any government entity can apply.
All right, next up, we have the Wyoming Community Development Authority, and I believe Casey's going to start.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right, my name is Casey Hurlis. I am the Neighborhood Development Officer at WCDA. I'm gonna start by thanking everybody for being here and Kathy and everybody who put this together. It's been fantastic. As Mark had mentioned, we work directly with HUD for a portion of what our agency does. WCDA is a housing finance agency, and I'm going to try really hard not to do the alphabet soup, but with federal programs, it's nearly impossible. WCDA houses home, LIHTC, sorry,
low income tax credit housing, NHTF, and then CDBG. So Community Development Block Grant. We recently took that over in July of 2020, and we are working to try to bring affordable housing to the state through all of those programs. That being said, block grant, it's a little harder. We cannot do new construction. Our eligible applicants are units of general local government, so city, county governments. We aim to benefit low to moderate income people. What that is 50 to 80% AMI, whether that's through a area benefit or a neighborhood benefit, leave that to us, we'll help you. We can do infrastructure, which is most commonly what we do. We can do slum and blight, public services, economic development, urgent need. Some of them have caps. Right now, we have posted our method of distribution for 2024. What that is the way that we administer the block grant. That is currently open for public comment, so please review it. It's on our website. Submit any comments you may have. We also have a public forum and hearing regarding those changes. Monday, June 26th at 9:30, we will have a virtual option, or you're welcome to join us in our office. The only way we can make that plan better and try to help communities with what they need is if you tell me what you love and what you don't love. Our notice of funding availability will hopefully be posted in July. Our letter of intent for block grant will be due August 31st. Those will be available on our website shortly. Our application will be due September 30th. That will also be available on our website. We will do site visits, scoring, board recommendations with approval in January of 2024. I'm trying to hurry so we stay on time. I think that's all I have. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina Nelson.
Thank you, Casey. I am Christina Nelson. I am the Neighborhood Project Specialist with WCDA. So Casey and I are the two people that administer the CDBG program for the state of Wyoming. I just want to emphasize that a lot of the changes that we made with the method of distribution are focused around us explaining to you, the municipalities, applicants, subrecipients, that we would like to just have you keep in mind that we want you to be environmentally responsible with your projects. There are a lot of changes on what we're requiring with the applications as far as environmental studies, depending on the type of projects that you're going to have. So we would really encourage reaching out to us for technical assistance over the next several months. Because of all the changes, we had a really good outcome last year when we offered training in our office. So we're going to offer that again this year at WCDA on August 2nd. We have an in-office training on the environmental requirements with CDBG, the types of level of review that we'll be doing on the projects, the requirements from not only handed down by EPA, but also, HUD gives us the guidelines that we'll follow. And so this is just a really good opportunity for us to sit with you directly and answer questions and talk to you and show you, what we're talking about and why we are asking for what we're asking for. So it's also going to include an afternoon of going through the actual application. So the application sections, we're going to go through all of the requirements in the application, and we're going to explain to you, this is what we want, and
if the application's not complete, if this is not in here specifically, the application will make it to scoring. And I think that the best result is going to be, because we're going to go through that with you. We took over the CDBG a couple years ago, and the process is completely different. And so we feel like, we have changed it so much that the best thing for us to do is to just train everybody on what we want, right? Give you all the technical assistance that we possibly can. So that way we can say we are here to help you. We want your projects to be funded. We want these projects to be successful. We want to be here for you. We want to help you get through this process. It is a lot. It's a lot of information that we're asking for. It's a lot of information that we have to get through. So it's easier for us to say every single application looks the same. Every single application has the same documentation. So that way we can say, you know what? This is what we're looking for. We can score everybody, fairly. And we can say that we sat down with all of our municipalities and our subrecipients, nonprofits. You're all invited to come in and take that training. We're not going to charge for it. We're going to offer virtual, in person, whatever we can do to help you get through this funding round. We want to help you. And, we do want you to ask questions. We want you to call. We want you to email, stop by our booth, grab our business cards, go to our website, pull our method of distribution, read it, look through it, make comments, email us, make comments. We want the feedback. We need to know what communities need in the state of Wyoming. We know what we want to focus on. We know what the issues are in the state. We know housing's an issue in the whole state. We know that, there's just no housing. We know there's no inventory. This is a big issue. We know what we want to focus on in the state, but we just need the ideas on how to get there. So we want to work with all of you to get there. So, just stop by. We're going to be here all afternoon. So yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. Sorry, I'm just going to go. Go.
And special thank you to our panelists that are getting us back on track. I was a little bit worried when Kathy said, oh, you'll do great keeping them on track, and there's lots of people and you have an hour, so good luck. With that, I want to turn it over to Amber Power with the Business Council.
Good morning. How are you? Good. One great out of this entire room. That's super. Hi, my name is Amber Power. I am the Community Leadership and Engagement Manager with the Wyoming Business Council, and I'm really excited to be here. Next slide. Thank you. So I polled some of my colleagues and some of the people who participated in this conference over the last couple of days, and I said, what are the important things that we should cover, at least from Wyoming Business Council perspective? And they said, we don't care, just keep it really short and really simple. Like one thing. I think I got this. One thing. I'll cover just a few things, but I will try my best to keep it short and simple, because we do have some great people here in the audience. So Brandy being one is our regional director. We have Kylie Ingersoll, who is also a regional director, and Heather Tupper, who is, you can't see her, but she's sneaking back in the door for moral support, I think, here as well. So you have lots of people available to you. Now that is half our regional director staff that can help you walk through any questions that you have, Wyoming Business Council, but especially the grant processes that we offer. So just in general, if you want to work with Wyoming Business Council, or you are interested in understanding what Wyoming Business Council does in terms of grant opportunities, there are really 3 requirements. Keeping it simple again, basic requirements are basically that we work with cities, towns, counties, joint powers boards, and of course the tribal governments. So if you are one of those, then or partnered with one of those, make sure that they're in your partner for any project that you have. Then you can then reach out to one of our regional directors for further assistance on some of your granting opportunities or project opportunities. We focus on purchasing or building infrastructure or assets in your particular communities in service to supporting your local economy. So Wyoming Business Council is the economic development arm for the Wyoming state government. So our mission really is to help support your local economies. So that might look like retaining businesses that you already have in your communities. They might be interested in or needed some extra help staying around, growing, expanding. You might be recruiting new businesses to your communities. Or you might want to make your communities ready to recruit by providing some or offering some infrastructure. So those are really, in general, the basic projects that we offer through the Wyoming Business Council. All right. So I want to just really quickly run through some of the options that we have for granting. The first one that you may have heard of, it's usually the one that's the biggest and most talked about, and that is the Business Readiness Grant, Business Ready Community Grant. They have planning grants, community readiness, community projects, and business committed. These, again, are just to help local communities facilitate economic development, sustainability, and or growth. In your communities, we have a placemaking grant, which is just kind of the valuing place, making things nice for your communities, for tourism, for a draw downtown to specific areas. If you'd like some more foot traffic in your downtown or specific business areas, you can apply for placemaking grants. And we have something called the Small Rural Development, and we coin them mini grants because they're pretty small funds. But we have a leadership grant. We also have, and that's really to foster leadership programs. We can't grant to individual people, but we can grant to programs that help develop leadership skills in our state. And we also have some small community grants, and those again are for asset-based things. So signage, maybe some work on some infrastructure in local areas for parkways and things like that. We do have a couple of other options that you can walk through, but again, I am going to suggest if you have any questions and you really want to look at those details, start with your regional director. So that is actually the process. So someone asked, what's the process? You start with your regional director. But in order to do that, you need to come with a project. So if you could please, thank you. And this is where I really wanted to focus the last 2 minutes of my time with you today, is focusing in specifically on understanding what your project is in your community. So instead of looking at all of these vast and varied and really cool grant opportunities that you've heard about over the past 2 days and then some, figure out who you are and what you want to do. What is the purpose of your project? And I would encourage you to get really specific about that. And then what would the outcome be? And then you can look for grants that match that purpose and your outcomes. So how many of you have unlimited capacity? I've heard that word thrown around a lot. You guys have all the money and the people power in the world to write grants, right? Okay, so it really does make sense that you understand what the purpose is first before you go out looking for the federal money or the state monies. And then you're matching your outcomes with those specific dollars, because not only is the grant writing sometimes overwhelming, but then it always comes with those niggling things, right? Like you have to do reports and keep up with those things. So it just makes sense that you're aligning your projects with the funding as well as your capacity. I just put up a really quick chart. I use this with a lot of our communities and previous clients that I've worked with, some of which I see in the room as well. But something that you could do, and this will be on the slide deck that you can look at if it means much to you, is just really start with what your project's assets are and understanding what you have available. This is your capacity, right? So understanding what you can use for any particular project. This could be resources in terms of budgets, and it also could be people in terms of partners that can help you really focus in on what your assets might be for a particular project. Something else that you might want to ask yourself is, who are we going to serve with this project? So we toss that term stakeholder around a lot, but those are incredibly important people. And sometimes you have to ask them, and that's those things, namely things called community engagement and stuff like that. We can also help you with that at the Wyoming Business Council, is understanding some of those techniques in terms of engaging your community and getting feedback from your communities. And how do we serve them in this particular project? So we're not asking how we serve them in general, but only as it relates to this particular project. And if we do serve them, then what does it look like when we succeed? So if you just walk through kind of those simple steps, sometimes that can help you narrow your project focus a bit and then help you figure out maybe which grants fit within the scope of your project, just to streamline, just to make it a little easier to manage and make it a little more efficient for you as well. Now, I am probably over my 5 minutes, so I apologize. You're a captive audience, and 5 minutes just is not enticing enough for me. So I'd like to just really briefly talk about some of the things that we can offer. So we do work with our community partners in terms of planning some of these things. We can help you walk through the process and just brainstorm what that might look like in terms of your project outcomes, in terms of what success might look like. We can also provide you some support with community engagement, like I mentioned, but again, I would always encourage you, you can call anyone at the Wyoming Business Council because we're always there and we always like to talk with you, but I would definitely encourage you to speak with one of your regionals as well, and they can point you in the right direction for the right service. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber. So we had 2 other people that were going to be on the panel today, but they actually spoke yesterday as well. So Beth Blackwell with State Land and Investments Board, SLIB. Yeah, if you guys have questions, she's here. And then we also had somebody from the University of Wyoming, Research and Economic Development. So I don't know. No, not today? They had an appointment, yeah. Okay, okay. So what questions do you have for these folks?
Not so much a question, but I've received many comments on progress that we're doing in Shoshone. A lot of people drive through it, so it's noticeable. But it all started, I called the Wyoming Business Council Representative Marcio at the time, newly elected mayor, with a councilman that we shared a vision, and we sat down with him. And that started everything going. You know, got us going to rural development. We applied for a roadmap. They'd mentioned it earlier, but that led into into our master plan. And with our master plan, we're following it to help us receive grants. So the Wyoming Business Council, the State Land of Investment Board, without that, the mid-sized community of Shoshone, we would not be able to do getting done. It's been, and it's slow. We had town members who thought we were going too slow and what's taking so long. But if you follow the steps and work with them, they're great partners. We wouldn't have done none of it without them. So just really give you guys just a thanks, and we're hoping to work more together and with our partners. Thanks so much.
One of the things that I keep finding is that there's a lot of money needed, there's a lot of money available. But what's not very available is planning grants or feasibility studies. And I think yours closes in February, so if you're working on a project, you sit on hold for 8 months and then maybe, so you're looking at then at a year before you really know anything. Coincidentally, USDA has the same time frame. And so it seems to me like with literally billions of dollars at stake, if we could have a better access to some good planning, because good planning creates good results. No planning creates guess what? And so it just, I don't know how you change some of those things, but to me, planning, feasibility and planning are so vital.
So the SRF funds can be used for planning. We're working on developing a grant program so that we can do just that to help with water and sewer systems. MRG, if we have a big giveaway at the end of the year, that would be a great thing to apply for. Mineral royalty grant funds could be used for that, and then it's a grant that could be used to do that. I think you can also take out small loans to do planning and design. So those are some options through OSLI. The other things that I didn't mention when I spoke yesterday is that our office is developing some technical assistance related to the lead line inventory. Contact our office or DEQ in order to have your name put on a list to have a contractor go out and do your inventory at no cost. Also, we'll be doing that related to the emerging contaminants. So there's some additional resources that I failed to mention yesterday when I spoke, but those technical assistants are at no cost to the entity. So you're going to meet your requirement for EPA and identifying your lead lines. But then we can also, we're working on those planning items with the SRAF program.
Kathy, I just want to add one thing, since you brought up planning, and that has been my soapbox since I've done economic development for 20 some years. And so everybody in the room that knows me knows that I, harp on planning. And one thing we have going right now is within the BRC program, which are our feasibility study and planning, the rules are open right now for public comment. Our staff has some proposed changes to the rules, but it's on our website. So take a look at it. And if you feel like that's important, please make those comments. It's under wyomingbusiness.org. But yep, we need to hear from you guys.
The community development block grant can also cover planning depending on the end project. So if you want to stop by and ask us about that, we can also talk to you about that.
Questions? So I want to be conscious of what we have going next. And would you rather take a break, or would you like to go right into the next segment, then go downstairs, get set up, have your lunch, visit with these folks in one fluid motion? Or are you just dying here and would like to have just a 10 minutes? 10-minute break, raise your hand. No break, raise your hand. And what are the rest of you guys doing? Sleeping or what? Okay, 5 minutes, okay, and we'll set up. So.
It was so nice to meet you. That's amazing. Thank you so Oh my gosh, you did a great job on the flying bridges flash. We'll do that, and I'll give you an input. You don't have to have a card with you. It doesn't matter. I'll find you. That's what's And we have all that on our registration. So, so I'll get that myself. So that's what this was about. So I think they'll appreciate it. So wonderful. Thank you so much, both of you. Yeah, nice to meet you. And I know that there's
Everybody slide.
We're going to give you a few quick minutes, but do find your way back to the room. We'll just take a few quick minutes.
Next time you're gonna be there is our, that's your time. Yes, I got girls who sign it, send it out.
All right, folks, if you can find your way in and find your seat, we would greatly appreciate it. Come on in and find your seat. These types of conversations are so exciting. We love seeing the networking and the excitement that's in the room. Everybody wants to talk to our federal partners. And this is the first time, sometimes in the state of Wyoming, we get to see our peers. So there's a lot of fervor going on. So I appreciate that. If you don't mind settling down your conversations, we've got some people who really want to share some good information, and we hopefully will be able to learn from them. My name is Lisa Mueller. I'm Vice President of Operations for MC2 Collaborative. I'm also a Division Director for Resource Acquisition and Government Affairs. And in simple terms, that just means I push a lot of paper through the pipeline. It's a messy, dirty place to be, but when you're in the grant services world, it's an important place to be. And to be able to be assembled with these peers that I have at this table is important to me. And so I'm honored to be, I would call it also moderator, but I'm quickly learning that it might be chief of disadvantages, because we are all in a disadvantaged place, and thankfully we're here with solutions. I want to also do one more shout out to the Wyoming Grant Services Coalition, 48 hours in the making, and business wheels are turning, ideas and solutions are coming together, bringing the identified needs and available resources and connecting those together. If you're breathing in the room, you're eligible. If you have heard the word grants and have said the word federal funding, you're officially a member. Welcome to the club. We're glad to have you. We'll get started with our panel. You've heard from our federal and state partners, and we're finishing off the morning with an important group who are here to share working examples and will tell you how they have done projects and been successful, and hopefully you can put this good information to work. We'll be welcoming these best planners and grant specialists from across the state, and they will go through their introductions as they begin their presentation. As presenters, please remember to give your name, your title, and your agency, and remember that we also have an hour, and it is right before lunch. I'll turn it over to Dr. Susan Bigelow, my peer, my mentor, a good friend of mine. Come on up.
credit. Technology sometimes is a little bit of a challenge. So I was going to use my phone as my own timer, but now it's shut off and I can't get to a black screen. So who will watch 5 minutes for me? Thank you, Fauna. Okay. So, thank you very much. Just serious. Oh, no, I can't. That's moving way too fast. I can't keep track of that. No, it's okay. Thank you. All right. Well, I have met many of you before, but I went into a COVID bubble, so it's so great to see all of you in person again. Okay. I have lived in Wyoming for 30 years. I spent 25 years working as a local and regional economic development director, and then I started as a local economic and regional economic development director, and then because my passion was workforce development and getting more welders, et cetera, into companies, I came to work for Northern Wyoming Community College District. I retired from the district 5 years ago. Anna used a term in our grant writing training. She said that she was an accidental grant writer. Well, for 25 years, I was an accidental grant writer, like many of you probably are, that you have a good idea, somebody has a good idea, but it doesn't actually happen until you get the money for it. And so you become a grant writer because you have got to get the money for it. 5 years ago, when I left full-time employment, I became a purposeful grant writer. So I work as a grant writing consultant. And I wanted to do a little PSA here. One of my clients is the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. They have a grant to fund grant assistance specifically for, it's kind of general, but then more specifically for counties, in areas that are impacted by the decline of coal. That grant to the Wyoming County Commissioners Association is funded by Rocky Mountain Power. So if Rocky Mountain Power especially is, if you are suffering from a decline in coal in your county, and you're especially in a Rocky Mountain Power area, please give me a call. And I do have a handout of my presentation up here today, and it has my contact information on it. And so please give me a call. I really am available to do some of what some of the other agencies say. We'll give you technical assistance, but we won't write the grant application for you. This assistance, I will actually write the grant application for you. Okay, I will not administer it, but I will, write or help you with the grant application. Okay. So Kathy, I titled our panel, and a month ago I was supposed to be doing my part, putting together my presentation. And so I looked at her title, Importance of Planning, Procedures, Policy, and Grants, Do's and Don'ts. And I thought, okay, I've been doing this for 30 years. I have a lot of don'ts because I've done every one of them. And so I thought I'd just share with you some do's and don'ts. I am not going through these. As I was preparing for today, I thought I'm going to take one of these and talk about that. And so next to the bottom on the left side, under the do's, okay, the do's and don'ts, toward the second to the bottom, on the do's, review, edit, format in accordance with the, now you all know, NOFO. What is NOFO?
Notice of funding.
Opportunity. Okay, you have to get the whole thing out. NOFO, notice of funding opportunity. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what to do, because what you don't do is submit the first draft. Now, we've all been in that grant writing mode. Or if you haven't been, you have someone who you've worked with who's in that grant writing mode. I'm so glad Beth is here in the front row, because the federal agencies don't know when you actually submit it. They just know that you got it in before the deadline. Beth is paying attention to exactly how close to the deadline you were. And so I want you to realize, I used to, when I was here at the college, I'd say, don't call me unless it's an emergency. I am in grant writing mode and I'm going home. That means I may forget to shower, kind of like COVID. I'm wearing my pajamas and I'm not going to meetings. I'm in grant writing mode. And you're in that way for a while, and you finally get all the pieces done, and you are just so sick and tired of this. You just want to submit and be done. Don't do that. Don't do that. Stop. Because this is a time when you need to go back through your grant application and make sure you've really done your best work. And don't let perfect be, you still have to get it in on time and hopefully early, but this is a really good time to just stop. And Anna talked about this in the grant training. And if you've missed that, I'm really sorry. But it was great information, and hopefully in following meetings here, we will be able to, have I gone over my 5 minutes? I'm good. Okay. I'm probably way over. I'm sorry. So use a reviewer. This is, and that reviewer can be an external reviewer. You can call me. I'm on this list. You've got my contact information. You can use an external reviewer. You can use a coworker, or quite often I'm my own team of one. And so I act as my own reviewer. And I'll tell you what I do. I print everything out. I shut my computer off. I get a good night's sleep. I take out my pen and I start going through everything and marking it up by pen. Because sometimes, as we work on our computer, we can miss things. And when that's my way of being an independent reviewer of my own work. But if you have a colleague, and this collective or collaborative, this could be a great way. You'll find a colleague that you can exchange with and send it to them. So I'm going to go through real quick. If you want to go through these in more detail, be over lunch. But did you answer the questions? Is the application readable? And not just is the language readable, but you all have picked up a book and said, I can't read, this book for 300 pages. There's too much on the page and it's just not readable. Whereas you read something else, you go, oh, this is easy to read. It's not about the language, it's about the visual. Is it readable? Is it internally consistent? We've all changed our plans partway through. And in one place, we've named something one thing, and someplace else, we've named it something else. We may have numbers over here that don't match the budget over there. So internal consistency. Did you follow the formatting guidelines? Federal government has gotten more and more specific about what the federal guidelines are. Used to be, you can use one of these fonts and a size, not smaller than this. But recently it's been this font, this size, this amount of margins, plus the page limit. Sentence structure, really short sentences. Forget those long sentences because nobody wants to read them. Grammar. If you get someone on the other end who had a really good English teacher, they're not going to really be reading your application. They're going to be watching for all the places you made grammatical mistakes. So give it to your person who will really tell you what you've done wrong there, but do it early enough that you can make the changes. And then I write at my computer and I know that I have unnecessary phrases and it's just the way I write. And so I have to write through one time and then I have to go back through and say, every time I said, due to the fact, I just need to get rid of all those. So go back through and be critical of your own writing. So that's it. I'll be available. You want to talk? Pick up my handout. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Mary Crosby, and mine is, what is the golden rule of grant writing? And are you awake? Can you guess what town I'm from, since the golden rule store is in it? Kemmerer, Wyoming. I work for Lincoln County. I came here 42 years ago to spend 2 years in Wyoming because I wouldn't go on vacation here because I don't hunt, camp, fish, any of those things. I'm still here 42 years later, so can't get rid of me. For grant writing, what you really want to do is show how funding your project enables the funding entity to meet their goals, objectives, their mission. How do you find their mission? Well, you read that IIJA, you read their website, you find out if it's a philanthropy, who their founder was, what drove him. you're just really trying to get to know what matters to them. And then you really need to ask yourself, does this coincide with what I'm trying to do or my agency is trying to do? Because you don't want to change your agency to fit the grant opportunity. If that's what you're doing to fit the rules, it's the wrong opportunity. Move on. We can go on. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to follow the rules. Thinking outside the box is wonderful. In grants, color inside the lines. They want it there, nowhere else. Identify all the requirements that are going to take time, those public hearings, those letters of commitment, those memorandums of understanding. Make a list. You're going to need lots of time, so no procrastination. I tend to write very differently on a computer than I do handwritten. I always grab a blank sheet of paper and I write down everything I can think of about my application, about my project. Don't worry about grammar, anything else. It can be train of thought, can be bullet points, whatever works for you. Put it away. Now go back through those rules, make sure you have good lists, make sure you've really read it. And you're trying to see how this ties to their mission. What are you going to be tracking? Because you are going to have to do reports. Sorry, if you get the grant, there are reports. So make sure you're set up well to do that. And you should really be seeing what their goals are and how you're going to help them achieve those. We can go on. Okay, now let's check your progress on those things like public hearings. Did you advertise it for the right amount of time? Did you have to have a sign-in sheet? They're really hard to manufacture the next morning. Do the minutes from it have to be approved? Sometimes they do. So this is where you're really double checking that you read everything. And now you're gonna, at some point, you've got to have enough information to start writing that first draft she talked about. You're gonna end up with a lot of blank lines in it and things you didn't realize you were going to need. Don't panic, that's normal. Do make sure you're keeping track of formatting guidelines. Do you have your page number in the right place? She wasn't kidding when she said they specified the font. They specified the point size. Make sure you know them. Now you grab your jotted notes and you go through those and compare it with the document you've written. Do you have things on your sheet that have not shown up in the grant application? Sometimes that's really important. Sometimes it's important to you and not at all to the grant funder. So if it's important to the grant funder, make sure you get it under the correct question. If it's only important to you, okay, cross it out, go on. Now see how many blanks you have left and get busy on working on them. Depending on how thick a skin you have and how well you accept criticism, at some point you've got to start sharing this. And you're going to be listening to the people who are giving you feedback, have some who don't know anything about your project. See if their synopsis of it sounds anything like what you thought your project was. Also see from both those who are knowledgeable and those who aren't, whether they're using terms that the funder used. Because if you're doing a good job in your application, you should be picking up that theme of, oh boy, this is what it's gonna accomplish, and it should sound just like what the agency would say they want to accomplish. So you just keep repeating this process until you run out of time or you have the perfect application, and I don't think there is such a thing, but we can go on. Just some miscellaneous things I've learned, and I do have a handout. I worked for an economic development district funded by EDA for about a quarter of a century. And I mostly wrote grants for other people, for-profit, nonprofit, various municipalities that were in our district. I always wrote as an invisible narrator. First time I had to write something for a project that I was very involved in, oh, I had a horrible time. Nothing, I had sentences that made you want to throw up. So I'm like, why is this so difficult? And I pulled out an old application that was for something very similar. And it's like, I use the invisible narrator. I didn't have to say I or we. And it allows you to step back. When she said you can be your own reviewer, you can do that much more effectively if you've already put yourself as the invisible narrator. That puts some distance between you. So you can really see, am I answering their question or am I worried about bragging? You know, and you want it to read well. And I guess on that note, I'd like to say one other thing to do. Examine your answers to the questions that you didn't have any problem answering. Then compare that to your answer to the wonderful new question on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Do they read the same? Or do you find that on that DEI&A, you suddenly have long sentences, huge words? That means you aren't answering their question because you really don't know what they're asking. So this is something that you can use to kind of check yourself on. Have you read enough about what it is they want to accomplish there? Because you've got to be able to write those short, clear sentences with what you're going to do. It has to be actionable, you know, and that's a quick way to see if it is or not. And always ask for feedback, always sign up to review grants. You'll learn more doing that than any number of classes. You'll see what works and what doesn't. And I'm sure you'll all show what needs to be accomplished and you'll get the money. So Kristen can tell you what you do then.
Thank you. My name is Kristen Young, and I work in the Office of County Commissioners for Campbell County as the Grants Management Specialist. And I am here to talk to you about considerations and approaches to grant management and what you do post-award. So for post-award implementation. At Campbell County, my background involves, I worked for NWCCD as well for 15 years, and I started out in DOL grants and Department of Education grants, and then since I have started working at the county, we manage anything from Department of Homeland Security to Federal Aviation to Early Head Start, Department of Health types of grants, community service block grants, where we have subrecipients as well. And so taking all of those different rules and regulations can be a little bit overwhelming, but I'm providing you with kind of a basic starting place of how you would manage that as an organization. So 5 steps to ensure compliance are to stay on track with changing laws and regulations. And you might need to involve specialists to do that, like have a grant management specialist or a grant specialist that stays abreast of those sort of things. You also need to support your specialists and your employees to follow procedures. That requires clear communication of policy, procedures, and processes, training and education to understand the why. And wherever you can, replace repetitive tasks with automation or integrate into systems that you already have in place, especially in your financial management system. And also to schedule regular internal audits or compliance monitoring with your departments or just for specific grants. And then also to use the right software and understand how your financial management system can support compliance. And that doesn't mean that you have to buy, a fancy grant management system, but it does challenge organizations to think about how they're going to manage the grants and track them in maybe the systems that they already own. And so one thing that I've encountered working in local government is that sometimes organizations can be resistant to change. And so I implore all of you, to support or contribute to a work culture that supports regularly updating your financial management system, because that builds your capacity to manage your grants properly and ensures that your grants are an asset and they don't eventually become a liability because they haven't been managed or tracked properly. And it saves you money in the long run in your employee time and whatnot. And also it ties back to the first one of staying on track with changing laws and regulations, because those do change quite a bit. And I think that expectations in terms of grant management and compliance also modernize over the years. And so you need to be able to meet those requirements. Okay, slide. So I like to start thinking about what an auditor would need, or what you can, this is kind of double pronged, what you might need to report on to your agencies when you think about implementing your grant. And so if you have $750,000 or more in federal funding, then you will have a single audit, and that could be part of your regular audit as well. But the way that I like to think about grant audits is that it's an audit of the contract. And so, or the terms of the grant award. And so you always want to start with that, because if you have multi-year grants, then it's not just what is in your general ledger. And to add another layer of complexity to that, you might have a grant contract. So we have many grant contracts from the state of Wyoming that are passing through federal funds to us. And we might have 1 to 3 different forms of federal funding and then state general funds in one contract. And you need to be able to reconcile all of those amounts with your expenditures and revenues. You need to be able to show that you can reconcile those. And so you need to think about your financial management system in a way that is conducive to that, and really kind of evaluate whether or not you're set up for success doing that. And also too, you might get a state audit as well. So a lot of the service-based grants, so I have a community service block grant, and a lot of what our state audit entails is more coming and checking the service records. So if our program participants are income eligible, so we'll want to see that everybody that we spent money on, we have a record of their services. We have proof that they were eligible for the service based on their income and that sort of thing. So there's kind of a lot that can go into it. And then a federal audit might be conducted by the federal government, and it's kind of higher stakes and could be really in depth as well. So, okay. I really like this as a starting point for thinking about how to look at how your organization manages grants. This is from the US Department of Treasury. And these are just kind of, some best practices for internal controls. And one thing that I wanted to, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but one thing for our smaller communities in line 2, the written standards of conduct that you maybe want to be careful of is considering your conflicts of interest, because in our smaller communities, you might have board members and contractors that are related to your grant implementation, and you really need to think about and disclose those to your federal funders. And so I recommend that if you have a board and you're an organization that is administering grants, and also if you have contractors, that maybe you have a standing agenda item where people can disclose their conflicts of interest, and then you record it in the minutes, and then you also follow up and take action and disclose those to your federal funders as well. It's so that you know how to manage those and it doesn't come back on you. Also too, I will recommend the risk-based compliance monitoring system. I don't have time to go into more about what that is, but the Government Accountability Office, you can read more on their website about what that is. And then also if you want to take a shortcut like I did, you can take a training about how to develop a risk-based compliance monitoring system from the National Grants Management Association. Cost me like $179 and it was totally worth it. So they kind of tell you what you should do and make recommendations, and then you can go from there and set a schedule to be able to do that. Right? Okay, so if you want to, you have to prove compliance. And so that means that you need to standardize your processes and procedures so that you can get everything that you need to prove compliance. You have to have all of your documentation. You have to maximize the use of your systems in place to build your capacity. And then you also need access to required documents. And I recommend that you store those in a shared location. And so there are many documents that you need when you're implementing a grant that are not just going to be in your financial system. They may not be captured by your financial system. And I do have a checklist that I give to my departments as well, because they can't remember everything that they need to do. And I have those for you as an example, as a handout, and I'm happy to share those with you or email them to you. But I'll call them ancillary records that are maybe non-financial records. You need procurement files that have your bid advertisements, the bids that came in, your approval of your award of your bid, all of that kind of thing. You need prior approval travel files usually that are your organization may or may not engage in for the overall organization, but you need it for your grants. You need service records and that maybe doesn't belong in the shared file, but you need to have them in a fireproof locked cabinet as well. You need your approvals and prior authorizations, performance reports. You need to retain them for the right amount of time. You need to have your match documentation, and then your personal activity reports and time and effort reports in a file that doesn't live with one of your employees, where when they quit, then you can't find it anymore. So you also need fully executed contracts and amendments. Any changes to your funding, you need to have that as well, because again, your auditors are going to be looking at whether or not your expenses and your revenues were compliant. And so if you've amended your contract at some point, they're going to be confused. So, and so the guiding cost principles in uniform guidance are your costs reasonable? Are they allowable? And are they allocable? And you need proof of that. Slide. And I also want to go into matching funds. So matching funds are part of your grant contract, and they need to be tracked to your grant contract. So you might have matching funds that aren't in your coded grant accounts. They might be in like a general fund account or something like that. And you need to make sure that you are able to track your matching funds somehow to your grant contract, because they're part of your award. And I think that it's easy to confuse, especially if you over budget, match funds. You need to be able to track the amount of match funds in your contract to the contract. So if you have a requirement of 3% matching funds, you need to be able to at least track that amount to your grant contract. And so this is what I say to my colleagues all the time. And then, okay, slide. And then this is my dynasty meme. So this is what then we're able to provide to the auditors. And I want to tell you too, that you don't have to actually have the physical pieces of paper for everything, because you want to be able to set yourself up to facilitate maybe a desk audit, because there are so many times when you might have an auditor who remotes into your system or something. And so you want to be set up so that you're not scrambling, like trying to scan in every single piece of documentation that they need to see, because the longer that you take it to respond, your risk level goes up. The more they have, the more they lose faith in you. And so just have the papers to prove it. They don't have to be actual papers. So, okay. And then my biggest piece of advice is know what you're agreeing to, and you need to go through and find out if you have the policies and procedures in place that you're agreeing to, because it can be a lot. So you need to read the terms of your grant award. You need to have at least, your employees need to know about uniform guidance and where they can read more about cost principles. And I am a big fan of hyperlinking into your policies and procedures so that people can go and read more, so that you don't have like, a big overwhelming 500-page binder that you're giving people and expecting them to, read it, because then nobody will. But at least they will have the resource to go into more depth if they have a question of whether or not something they're spending money on is allowable. You also want to read the guidance of the funding agency. So I'll just give you an example that, Department of Health has a $5,000 prior approval requirement. So you have to get prior approval from whoever is more important than you to spend amounts in more than $5,000. And so you want to be able to know that sort of thing. And then there's also an order of precedence. So at a minimum, you follow uniform guidance. If the funding agency has more stringent rules, you follow that stringent rule for whatever that situation is. And then if you have an organizational policy where they say you need prior approval or an extra approval for $3,000, then you have to follow that. So, okay, next. So you need to design your policies and procedures to support compliance, and train your staff and root that in, uniform guidance at a minimum, and try to integrate some higher level things or other levels of expectations into the way that you're doing things. You could also model processes and procedures from other comparable organizations. So Laramie County has a really great website for grants management. Sandra Newland, yes. they have a really great website, so I recommend checking that out if you're overwhelmed of where to start doing something like this. And then once you've done all of this, you might take and assess the gaps and risk in your policies and procedures. You would start going about organizing site visits where you would do, an internal risk assessment of your grant projects. Go see where are they storing their service records. Do they have like travel authorizations and that sort of thing if you don't know where they're at, and try to give them recommendations to improve. Maybe create a grant training and onboarding program. And at the county, since we have so many diverse forms of funding, I like to just do that by department rather than like an overarching. I can do like a grants 101 like this, for everybody, but if I want to go more in depth, then I need to customize it to what grants that those department heads are administering. And then also, if you have subrecipients, so we sub money out to community nonprofits, same thing. And that actually helps them to increase their capacity so that they can go after and accept more forms of federal funding, if you're helping them revise and giving them recommendations for the administration of federal funding. And just make sure that you stay on top of grant fiscal policy and revisions and document retention. Highly recommend you centralize it in some form, final copies only, because you don't want to get a bunch of change documents and it's this way in one location and then the real document is in another location. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. And we all hope in our goal of grant writing is to reach that grant management point. And so we appreciate being able to hear that portion of it. Before I turn it over to phase 2 of our panel discussion, I'd like to know if there are any questions for our first 3 speakers. Any questions for them? Let me know. We have a hand. Thank you. We have a microphone coming. Stand by.
I'm curious, I'm curious whether you feel like this is an area I think AI will become a big part of it, you know, for researching the subjects and coming up with protocols to give information that'll support an audit, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just, is anybody into that yet? I'm just curious. Or do you even think it will happen?
I'm hoping I'll be retired, but I think it's a potentially valuable tool until you know more about it. The bits and pieces I've seen and played with, it sounds good, but a lot of things that sound good, you better go check.
Thank you. Any other questions before we turn over to phase 2 of our panel? We're coming.
So I don't know if you touched on this or not, and I really appreciate you coming to teach us on the subjects of grant writing. There seems to be kind of this culture where, as grant writers, we're expected to write to the 3rd grade level. Have you ever heard that? And can you discount that for me, please?
I think it depends a lot on who you're applying to. I would say you always try to match your writing style to the writing style of the agency, their documents. You know, there isn't a premium on using a thesaurus to come up with the $1 million word. Everybody likes to read things that are easy to read. Most grant reviewers have stacks to review. So you need to know the audience you're writing to. If you're applying to DOE and it's going to be reviewed by engineers and research scientists, you'd better not be at a 3rd grade level. So I think it depends, but they may have said that to encourage you to be simple, direct, and clear and concise.
Okay, referring to the do's and don'ts. Do use short sentences with clear concepts and supporting data. That doesn't necessarily mean at the 3rd grade level. It just means be clear. Short sentences, don't get lost in it. On the don'ts was use academic or trade writing with complex sentences and long paragraphs, but it depends on your audience. If you're writing to NSF, National Science Foundation, you really need a scientist to write that part. They're writing to a science audience. So just pay attention to who your audience is and make sure you have that information. Quite often though, as my focus has been more in economic development, well, we need to be able to write in such a way that someone who isn't a specialist Your elected officials on this side, lay people on the other side. You need to be able to write in such a way that people understand what you're talking about. That's it. And I usually try to just read my own writing out loud. If it's difficult for me to read out loud and keep track of what I'm trying to say, then I need to rewrite it.
Thank you for sharing and thank you for the questions. We're going to shift gears to our other panelists, and I'm going to I'll have Angela start, but we'll also have further introductions once you're here. Come on up.
Hi, my name's Angela Parker. I am the WyoPass president. That's the Wyoming Planning Association. And as far as my job goes, I do not work in planning. I work as a weed and pest office manager, but I do deal a lot with grants, but our grants are a little bit different. They're more non-competitive, I guess you would say. They're with BLM and the Forest Service and the state. And we know we're going to get funding, but we still have to make an application and show why we need the funding. And then as far as the state goes, we may not get exactly what we asked for. With BLM and the Forest Service, they tell us how much they have for us, and then that's what we apply for. So they're a little bit different, but it's still the same kind of application process. We have to justify everything, and we have to do reports at the end of the year. But as far as having a plan, before you do those applications, having plans in place and policies, those help you to fill out those applications, because the questions that they ask, you can go back, oh, we have that in our plan, and you can just pull that wording, maybe even word for word exactly, just cut and paste, and then you're done with that question. That question's answered. So and the policies help with that as well. In weed and pest, year to year, it changes just a little bit, but the plan basically is, where are we going to try to do weed control or pest control this year? What's the noxious weed that's causing the most problems this year that we're gonna target? And so we can go back and look at last year's and kind of take some of what we did last year and just plug it into the application and we usually take from the final report and plug it into the next year's application and move forward from there. But it's important to have those plans, because you need to know what you're going to do with that grant when you get it. So I'm going to let Clara talk some more about those plans, because she works in a planning department. So.
So as Angela said, my name is Clara Chaffin. I am the Community Development Director for the City of Douglas. I've been there for almost 10 years now, and I am an accidental grant writer. I never intended to write grants, but as a planner, my job is to look at our community and our region and see what it is today and envision what it'll be tomorrow, and then envision what it'll be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. In order to do that, I have to communicate with my community and the organizations within my community and the other governments within my community. And from those things, we develop these master plans, comprehensive plans. There's a sample of several that we do have for the city of Douglas up on the screen there. But what I want to emphasize here is these plans, some of them are as old as 2014, so some of them are almost 10 years old. But what they do, each and every one of them, is they get out into the community and they ask the community, what is it that you want to see? What's wrong with this area? What do we need to change? What are your dreams? How do you want your community or your region or your county to look for your grandchildren? And these plans answer those questions. And it's really important to follow those guidelines. When we work in government, we are working for all the people that we live with. We're working for our neighbors and our family members. So up here, you'll see that we have things like a master plan, which is overall comprehensive plan for a community, but you can get specific. So for example, we have a downtown master plan, and many of you might see those kinds of very specific Main Street oriented plans. Those kinds of master plans are going to help you get more directed grants. And then we have even more specific. So for example, the downtown needs assessment study. That one looks at what we took from our master plan, what we took from our downtown needs assessment, and then it says, okay, how are we going to change our infrastructure? What do we need to do for our infrastructure, and how is our infrastructure failing in our downtown? And from there, we can get grants. Because now we've proven that we have an absolute need. We've proven that we've gotten our community involved in answering and engaging. And now we can show that we have something that needs to be funded. And we go to the council, we go to the economic development organization, we might even go to the county and ask for match funding for those things. But we have that proof. And that's where the planning aspect really comes into play. There are two other plans up here that I wanted to note, one of which is a hazard mitigation plan, which has been talked about a little bit today. The city of Douglas didn't do the hazard mitigation plan. We participated, but we didn't fund it and we didn't put it together. But that doesn't mean we can't use that plan. Same with the city of Douglas housing study. Our economic development organization did a countywide and then specific municipality housing study. We didn't participate with that at the city of Douglas. They came, asked us a couple questions, but beyond that, we didn't give them any money. We didn't put the plan together. It's not our master plan. But that doesn't mean that we can't use it in our applications. If you go to the next slide, please. This is just a few examples of grants that the city has either applied for and been awarded or intends to apply for as we move forward. And what I wanted to really emphasize on this is that every single one of these grant applications, whether it was $1,000 or millions of dollars, had to have a master plan of some sort to be referenced. It was a requirement of the grant application. And so that's where I say that, you know, look outside your organization. Does the state have a master plan that you can use? On here, you'll see that in one of them, we actually used Governor Mead's bicycle and pedestrian task force report. It's free. Use it. Check it out. It's fantastic. And some of these other ones, we use the Eastern Wyoming College master plan to help apply for a grant. Again, free to us. We didn't need to do anything other than pull that up, read through it, and see if it matched the grant. And if it did, take that excerpt out of it and pop it into the grant. These grants, for example, the Wyoming Business Council has had placemaking grants. Some of them are as small as $1,000. Some of them are as large as $10,000. We use multiple applications for that. And we also did community engagement, additional community engagement before we actually applied for the grant. It was a part of the requirement. I don't want to get in too much into community engagement because I think that's what's going to come up next. But I did want to identify that there are community engagement requirements in almost every single grant that I have dealt with. And every single one of these grants, you'll see, yes, community engagement was a requirement, whether it was required before the application or after the application. The people giving you funding, they want to see that the projects that you are doing are wanted and needed by the community. They are not just pie in the sky coming up with an idea by yourself and trying to implement it and force it on the community. So that community engagement piece is really key, and I won't steal your thunder. So the other question, I didn't have a whole list here, but I would like to mention that there are grants available out there to help you develop these plans, these documents that you need to cite and reference. For example, Wyoming DEQ, unfortunately, I don't think they're here or represented, but they do have, oh, they're here, fantastic. Oh, wonderful. Go talk to Wyoming DEQ. They have some feasibility grants that they can help you out. They can help you put together some plans and their site feasibility. And you can also go with lighter, quicker, cheaper options. So a master plan oftentimes is thought of as a very onerous process and a very expensive process. You got to hire in all these consultants and it takes 2 years to do. It doesn't have to be that bad. Absolutely not. We're doing a lighter, quicker, cheaper option to update our master plan in this next fiscal year. And what that means is we've got a master plan in place. we're just gonna update it. We're not gonna reinvent the wheel. We're gonna go out, we're gonna do a ton of community engagement. We're gonna show them what we have currently, and then we're gonna go and update it. And it's going to take just a few months to do, and it's not gonna cost near the amount of doing a full plan. So when you're putting that RFP out there, if you know your community doesn't have a heck of a lot of money to do a master plan, don't ask for a full master plan, ask for a basic plan. That is good enough for grant applications in most cases. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, but I think we need to pass it on now for community engagement.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Kemper. I'm with the City of Mills and I tend to talk fast, so I am the only one standing between you and lunch. So I will make sure this is fast. I only have 45 slides, about an hour and a half, so we'll be good. But like I said, with the City of Mills, and we have a population of about 4,300. Next slide. A little bit of history of the City of Mills was started with the Mills Construction Company, the Mills family. They actually were the ones mining gravel or kind of getting the gravel for the Salt Creek oil field, which is up in the Midwest area north of Casper. And those roads were getting rutted up pretty bad. So somebody had to provide the gravel for those the vehicles to get back and forth and be able to get back and forth because they were getting stuck, which wasn't a great thing for them. And they decided there were residents that lived just on the other side of the river from Casper. They did not want to be a part of Casper, so they decided to form their local government. And that's why we are now the City of Mills. Well, it was the Town of Mills, now we're the City of Mills, because in August of 2020, we declared to the governor that we have over 4,000 people, so we're now a city. Next slide. That was fun. So comprehensive plan, you'll see a theme in all of this, that planning is a big part of it. We did this last comprehensive plan in September of 2017. The one before this was from 1994. Generally, they say it's best practice to redo your comprehensive plans about every maybe 5 to 10 years. We did not do that. We're looking at maybe doing it again soon. We'll see what happens, but we're still working off of this plan. And it's still working for us. So that's why it's working, that we're implementing the stuff that we have in this plan. Next. So community engagement is, why do you want public input? Obviously, you want the neighbors and everybody, the residents, to be a part of that plan. You want them to have a say in what you're doing. As mentioned earlier, if you have a neighborhood park that's coming in and people don't want that neighborhood park, you want to know that. Or you want to know what they want in that park. Do they have kids with disabilities? What's the best use of that area? And how do you get the community involved? So with Mills, we have historically been the armpit of Casper. If you're familiar with the area, we're just across the river from Casper, and that's where people went to work, not live. They generally lived in Casper, and then as Casper kind of grew, it got more expensive. So developers kind of looked outside of Casper into Evansville, Bar None and Mills, and they kind of came to Mills. We have a smaller council, so less red tape to get through. So we're a little easier to deal with. And so we became a little bit more friendly and less cost effective, more cost effective, to build a house and buy a house in Mills. Getting the community involved, like I said, when you're the armpit of the area, people don't want to be a part of your community. So when there's an area around that is not being annexed in Mills, you can tell them you're going to be annexed into that area. We sent out, did some public involvement and sent out a letter, and some rumor mill had it that Mills was going to annex them, and boy, they showed up in droves to our public involvement that we wanted information from. So don't tell them till the end that you're not annexing them in Mills, because then they'll leave. Just get their opinion, say, okay, and then by the way, we're not annexing you because that wasn't the plan. But I don't know, it's a tactic, it worked. But you have to be the armpit, just saying. So anyway, another great thing that we've done in Mills too is be involved in the community. So I'm part of Rotary, a part of the chamber, go to the events. go volunteer. Volunteer is the secret sauce because you can talk to other volunteers and get their opinions. I've met so many people that actually live in Mills that I had no idea lived in Mills. I said, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? You can get their opinions because you're volunteering, you're doing stuff together with them anyway. So that works very well. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you to our panelists. You hear a lot of value engineering in that, and that's really fun to hear and to see. Thank you for sharing. So it is lunch. It's 30 minutes. It's a quick 30 minutes. We're on time. Thank you for putting me in good hands for that, making my announcement easy. And I'll turn it over to you, Miss Kathy.
No, with that, perfect, Lisa, and just a little note. Please don't be scared. We're gonna put together a list of all the presenters. We're gonna have all the slides on the Lummus site. So, you know, I know this was a lot to digest, but as I said before, we're all in that paddle boat together. So don't be afraid. This is just the beginning. So thank you, guys. You did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.